Let's see. It says we're going live. Hey, it says you're live. We have now opened up on YouTube. The board meeting is all yours, Board President Golick.
Perfect, thanks. So just as we kick things off, this meeting is being held via Google Meets and YouTube, pursuant to Executive Order N29-20, which authorizes local legislative bodies to hold public meetings via teleconference and to make public meetings accessible telephonically or otherwise electronically to all members of the public. Members of the public are encouraged to observe and participate in the teleconference. Further instructions on how to electronically participate and submit your public comments can be found in the public participation portion note at the end of this agenda. Essentially, send an email to admin@westlakecharter.com. In the subject line, note what topic you're wishing to comment on, and please keep that to 250 words. If we receive it while we're still doing the item, we'll go ahead and read it to the record. But if by chance you don't hear your comment, please know that all comments received will be made part of the board packet and sent to all board members. So with that, Ms. Amy, will you please take the roll?
I would love to. Hope Golick.
Yes.
John Berman.
Yes.
Nancy Congress.
Here.
Josh Corral.
Here.
Michelle Goodwin.
Oh, here.
Vasa Laktev.
I'm here.
Ashley Patel.
Here.
Shannon Simmons.
Simons. Here.
Simons, I'm sorry. I did it last time too. Jed Wallace.
Here.
You have a full board quorum.
Thank you. So that brings us to celebrations. I'll go ahead and kick off tonight, and I'll go in the order of my screen. So I think it's it's not even alphabetical. Let's talk about a win. So I'd like to celebrate Wave and their coffee talk that was held on Tuesday night. I really enjoyed it. With the three special guests. And I just want to use my celebration to highlight Joey's Food Locker and the fact that Westlake Charter is collecting non-perishable goods now through December 17th to give to the Food Locker. And this time of year, and hearing the number of families that are in need in our community really brought home for me that this is a great opportunity for our community to come together and help those that need it. So celebrate Wave and Joey's. And with that, Amy, you're next on my screen, and then Nancy. Oh, Amy, go away.
I hit the wrong button. I've only been for 9 months. I'm still hitting the wrong buttons. I will celebrate some of our 8th grade web leaders who are helping me with our after-school live clubs. I got to do online jigsaw puzzles with 4th and 5th graders today, which was truly amazing and epic. And at the same time, I had another computer running with 3 different meets on it, and I was watching our middle schoolers play charades and Pictionary, and we've just been having a great week and watching our 8th graders really just dive into virtual after-school live clubs and just really having fun with it. So I'm so proud of them and love that we're able to provide an opportunity for our kiddos to just kind of hang out and socialize.
No, I think it's great. Nancy, and then Josh.
I would just like to celebrate the holiday season and the first night of Hanukkah for those who celebrate this evening. It has just been a really crazy busy time, and despite COVID, things are continuing on. You mentioned Joey's Food Locker. I've also been advocating for Stanford Settlement, which is also a local Natomas club or neighborhood community center. And the need is great, and I fully encourage everyone to help where you can. I know it's not easy or anything, but truly I feel like this holiday is a season of being grateful and giving back. So I hope that everyone feels the same way. And it's just been a busy time. Many of you on here know that I've been baking a lot. So like literally in the last 2 weeks, I've had over 700 cookies due, more due next week. So it has been a little bit of a miracle as well. So I absolutely celebrate miracles and no lack of shortage of supplies, including toilet paper. So it's all good. I love your Westlake cookie. There'll be more, but it's all good, and it's been really fun and lots of fun celebrations and whatnot. So fully appreciate being part of those things.
I always think of you, Nancy, because you get to see the celebrations. Like
Right.
even through all this, you get the moments of seeing families
It's
come
true.
together, and not together, but to celebrate. And I just
Absolutely. I love that. It literally is the best part of doing this little side gig that I do with baking, and I get to celebrate lots of new things, including Olympic triathlon this year, and then also on Tuesday I missed the coffee talk because I was my cookies made it to the city council, outgoing city council members. So it's been very diverse this year for sure, and but it's been great.
thanks, Nancy, Josh, and then Shannon.
Well, good evening. I am celebrating today. I'm finally legit. I don't know if you can see it, but did you know we have a spirit store? So I am celebrating our spirit store, and I am looking forward to it reopening next year so I can get some more goodies.
Make sure you get the beanie, Josh. The beanie is the best thing in the spirit store, in my opinion.
All right.
It's all awesome, but I love
All
the
right,
beanie.
I'm in.
Yeah. Shannon and then Jed.
So I'm going to celebrate some personal celebrations. I finally done with construction in my house, which was more stressful than I would have anticipated, even though it's a pandemic, so I don't know why I would have thought that wasn't more stressful. But since I've been trapped in my house all year and will probably be here alone for a while, it's nice to have new floors, new counters, like everything is just, my mental health has vastly improved in the last week. So that's a real win over here. And then in thinking about like giving back in the holiday season and things like that, I'm also just going to celebrate, I made a commitment this season, and as much as I can this year, to really shift my consumer habits to be more intentional and conscious about supporting local small businesses, Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, all sorts of other non-Amazon type businesses. And so I'm really committing to, at the very least, shopping for everyone else that way. I've failed a little bit on some of the home stuff in that department, but progress, not perfection. So just trying to support not big boxes.
Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind with local restaurants now, too, with the new stay-at-home orders taking effect tonight. Jed and then Ashley.
Well, I'm celebrating Hope yet again because, she does so many things incredibly well. But, she's incredibly smart, to put such great decorations behind her. I don't know anybody else, that would be doing that in their offices as well. Putting a Christmas tree, that seems pretty extreme. But hey, Hope, you got great taste. You got great taste. All right.
I've taken a lot of heat for it at work, but I think it's perfect, right?
God, I have been trying to figure out how to move my whole life so that my Christmas tree can be in the background, and I can't figure it out. So,
and this way, everybody gets to enjoy a little bit of spirit, right? Now, what if I had it up before Thanksgiving?
I just want to throw out there that my husband would not let me put a Christmas tree behind me, so I had to do garland. But I tried for another Christmas tree, and he said no. So.
This is my only one, so there's that. So at least I have that going for me this year. We'll see. Ashley and then Michelle.
I'm looking at my Christmas tree, but embarrassingly, there's a huge box of ornaments that are still not put up, which is so not me. I am neurotic. The boxes come out, they go away. It never sits out. So I don't know who this person is this year, but that's something new. I will celebrate two things. One is personal, just because I always celebrate the road back to normalcy for my son and his injury, and so I will celebrate that the ski slopes were open, which when he was relearning to walk, he would be like holding me on one arm and his dad on the other arm and being like, I'm gonna ski this winter. And I'm like, I hope they're open. And so they were, and he would report to you that in 3 days over Thanksgiving break, he was back on 9 different black runs. And so he's fine. He as he says, he said, I still got it. So I'll celebrate that. That was definitely some mommy tears as I watched him go down. Some of them were from the pain in my legs, but all the same. And then I will celebrate our lottery. And as Josh was doing his celebration, I was like, ooh, does that mean like next year there's going to be that logo that Emily presented? Because the high school is in it, and I will listen to the Wave Coffee Talk, which thank goodness it's YouTube. I can get it later because I couldn't meet that time, which is so wonderful. But just all the blood, sweat, and tears that Hope and John put into that document, and I had the pleasure and the ability to be on that team and help give some good nuggets, I hope. But to actually see it come to life, the strategic document says we do win community, and I had it in my head, John. Now I'm all totally messing it up. Totally had it right in my head. When we collaborate, we can demonstrate what is possible. And in this time, I think it is so important to still give that hope and show that we are always moving forward. So can't wait to see what that number is for the high school on the lottery, but just exciting to see, and all the numbers, but that it's extending.
Thanks, Ashley. Michelle, and then Vasa.
Yeah, so I am just going to celebrate Westlake as a whole. There's been several kind of different mommy groups or Westlake groups or folks that are interested in Westlake discussions that have happened over the course of the last few weeks. So the word about the high school is definitely out there and people are excited about it. And then I also know of a couple families that are applying for just Westlake for their younger grades still. So, and they some of them go to other charter schools, some of them go to other schools that are local, and they want to move and go into the Westlake way. So I just want to celebrate the great work that Westlake does.
Yay. Vasa and then Sean.
Good evening, everyone. There's so much good stuff going on at Westlake. I'm sure I'll steal a couple of John's celebrations probably, but tomorrow is our fishbowl, and as I look at the middle school who are in I love middle schoolers. They're in this fragile social emotional state, trying to figure out what it means to be an individual. And we have this little fishbowl tomorrow where we mix 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. It's kind of, I think it was Batten's baby last year. It was a smashing success. And we're going to launch it this year. So next year, or tomorrow, the kids will be mixed together with a facilitator. Kids have already gotten the questions about distance learning and their social emotional well-being, what they like. But the cool part is that feedback is actually collected. I think it's a web leader sitting down to collect that data. And then that will be reviewed, at the admin level and by some of our MTSS staff. And we'll look at that data and use it to kind of inform, what we do for the kids, what type of support. So that's a really cool program. And then just one little shout out to Web too, because I help run that thing with Amy and a couple other teachers. But we had the web leaders also on Wednesday teach a lesson on your altitude determines your attitude, and they sent home in the mail a little balloon and a flyer invitation. And then the kids came, and the 8th graders had a lesson practiced for them and a story, and then they played games with them afterwards. So just a couple little pieces that were just pretty cool that went on this week and are going on. That's it.
Thanks, Vasa. Sean, and then Amber, if you want to celebrate.
So I was also going to celebrate our first lottery that includes high school, but given that has already been celebrated, I will reuse my celebration from governance, and I will celebrate healthcare workers who I have had the pleasure and misfortune of dealing with this week, both for my animal household members and for myself. And although I would rather not have, they were all wonderful, the people that I dealt with. So shout out to those healthcare workers.
Thanks, Sean. Amber, and then Steve.
Hi. So I would love to celebrate just how Westlake continues to make kind of our normal on-campus activities continue in distance learning. Like Vasa just said, like fish bowls happening, which is incredible. We have like after school live, which all 4 of my kids have done this week, which was amazing. We have OT parties going on virtually. We have coffee talks still happening. Just so many great things. My first grader in first grade, this is my 4th first grader. They always do like this family traditions project, and first grade has made that continue. So it's just really awesome to see all of those things that we love continue on. So well done.
Thanks, Amber. Steve, and then John, if you want to go ahead and do an early one.
I was going to celebrate the lottery as well with the addition of the 9th graders. It's super exciting. But a quick tangent from that is a shout out to Monica Darris. So Monica works in our office here, and every piece that you see out in our community, whether it's a flyer, a postcard, on social media, on the website, on the marquee out front, Monica has worked to really perfect that. So just a big shout out to Monica and the work she does behind the scenes to make us look on point. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. John, did you want to go ahead and do a quick celebration?
There we go. Yeah, I did my do one shout out that
Okay, then we'll move on.
Okay.
There you are.
Sorry, I was talking on my muted microphone, just practicing that. I sounded great. I do want to make a celebration because this celebration is not in my slide deck. We had 1,003 parent conferences during conference week. So we only have 1,000 students, but we had 1,003 conferences because several parents couldn't make it at the same time, and teachers graciously said, well, I'll meet with each one individually. I gotta tell you, I think that's the most number of conferences we've had, even though we typically have a high percentage of conferences, always looking for that 100%. We actually exceeded 100%. We had a 1,003. So you can say a lot of things about distance learning. One thing about the technology is I think it keeps us connected in some ways that maybe we couldn't actually do before. So just a great celebration there around parent conferences.
And I actually have one more celebration, and I'm sure I'm stealing something from committee reports, but I really don't care. Everyone should take a moment when they get a chance and check out the new Explore Partners website. It's looking fabulous. It's launched. That committee's worked really hard on it, and I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate them because it looks really cool. It can be found if you go to the Westlake Charter main page, the board drop-down menu, hover over board committees, and it will be right listed there as Explore Partners. So, I don't know, check it out if you have time. With that, are there any other board comments about items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none. John, that brings us to public comments, and I know you have one, so I will kick it over to you. You have 2. That's right, 2. Sorry, I miscounted.
Okay. Making sure my microphone stayed unmuted. Okay, I have 2 public comments. One came in yesterday. I'll read that one first. And then one just came in the last 15 minutes. I'll read that one second. Let's see if I can get to that on my screen. Here we go. The first public comment, and Amy Wells, I've forwarded this to you so you can place it in the board minutes so it's publicly viewable after the meeting. It reads as follows. Good evening, Westlake Charter School board members. As we enter the last month of 2020 and with looming shutdowns set to occur soon, we now know that school will not be reopening in January 2021 as we had hoped. Until the county achieves a red tier status again, families have been told we will remain in distance learning for now. Since today is the last board meeting of 2020, I would like the board to consider a topic for the January 2021 meeting agenda. There is one option/path to reopening provided to public schools by the California Department of Public Health, and that is the option to submit a waiver application. Please know that this request is not meant to overlook or ignore the seriousness of rising cases in our community currently. As a planner, I am simply asking that the board consider the possibility of submitting a waiver application for reopening 2 to 3 months from now, at which time we hope that the numbers will have decreased sufficiently to allow for a safe reopening. Thank you, Melissa Grubb. May I read the second one, Hope, or do you have any comment on that?
Well, I just want to say real fast that we don't normally have to make this advisement, and I probably should have done it before I kicked it over to you, so I apologize. But board meetings are meetings held in public, not public meetings, and the board can only comment on those items that have been agendized for discussion. However, with that particular comment, the board will be having a discussion around reopening plans, and so that may address some of that commenter's concerns, but certainly it's something we can consider for future agendas. I think we've had this topic on most every agenda thus far, so I really don't see it going away, but we will certainly have a robust discussion about it later.
Great. Thank you for receiving that comment. The second comment just came in a moment ago, and it reads as follows. As we see the COVID numbers increase daily during this tough period, I want to share my family's appreciation for our school community, staff, teachers, and administration. One of the biggest challenges of this situation is its unpredictability. That is especially hard in a school environment where everything is structured to be predictable, usually. Whether COVID cases decrease or increase is out of our administrators' control, yet they have communicated a very clear and detailed reopening plan again and again through weekly communications, coffee talks, and monthly school board meetings. Throughout the years, I have seen that my family can trust that Westlake as a team is looking at way more data and perspectives than I possibly can on my own. These board meetings show that the Westlake team takes a very thorough, thoughtful, and research-based approach to every decision the school makes. Thanks to our administrators, teachers, and staff for keeping us informed and keeping us safe. We know that you are doing what is best for our entire Westlake community. And we know that only when our larger communities of Sacramento and California get control of the spread of this virus will we get back to school, which is where we all want to be. Signed, Carissa Richards Johnson. I will check the email if there are any other public comments. But for now, those are the two that I had.
Okay.
I think we're all clear.
Perfect. So that will bring us to reports. Amber, you're up first with the WAVE report.
Hello again. So I think as a lot of us have heard, Olympic Triathlon, I think, did much better than anyone anticipated. We brought in about $36,000. We've been slowly starting some of the parties, which have been a huge hit, and the teachers are just thrilled. So it's, like I said, some of that normalcy is kind of fun, and it's a nice way to celebrate. And we've been trying to come up with other ways to be creative with those types of things as well. We are coming up with like a winter fest, which is going to be like kind of like daily activities for families to do over winter and post about. We're just trying to really focus on community and keeping everybody engaged with our community. And we're coming up with, I've been working kind of with Mr. Ike and Mrs. Caillou on like a trivia night and some of those family nights we can do virtually. And as Hope mentioned, we are doing a food drive right now for benefiting Joey's Food Locker, which I'm just thrilled about. The coffee talk was absolutely incredible. It may have been my favorite coffee talk ever. I was trying not to cry for half of it. And so we're just very thankful for our community. There was a lot of great celebrations and just a lot of very thoughtful questions and comments. So it was a real coffee talk and great way to end the year with that. We are doing a Dos Coyotes fundraiser. And so this is just takeout on Tuesday between 4 and 8 p.m. If you want to, you can order online, you can order on the phone, whatever you're most comfortable with, and just stop in, grab your food, and take it home. They give us 20% back, so Taco Tuesday sounds pretty good right now. And then, like I said, we're just going to be focused on community building and then providing any resources necessary to our community, whether that's mental health resources that we have, and Westlake has a lot of great resources, but we've just been doing some of that, kind of pointing things out to families and just continuing to build our community. So that's about it for WAVE right now.
I made a joke during governance, Amber, and I feel the need to make it here. I think it's really awesome that you're sending sweets home, so there's not sugar highs at school. I think it's gonna, that's gonna be fun.
That was fun to work with Nancy on, making it possible for them to decorate cookies together was a great idea of hers, that where they could actually just decorate and make it kind of that. If they want to eat, they can. If not, then it's kind of a little art activity, an art extension.
And then, sorry, I was at the coffee talk, so now I have questions for you. You have some committees you're looking for, right? You need some volunteers?
We do. So we are still trying to make, if fireworks are back to normal in June and July, we don't know right now, but if we are, we would love to have a fireworks booth, because that has historically brought in, $10,000 to $13,000. And then we also are looking for a corporate donations group. And so I have a list of like 150 corporations that donate goods or gift cards or different things. And so we're hoping to have each parent or family member have like 10 to 15 corporations that they ping for things. And so those are the two that we're focused on right now. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no, I just, community coming together, we can all help each other. So I just want to make sure that people knew that, the board's will take interested committee members. You need committee members and chairs. And so there's many ways to still help Westlake while we're in this pandemic. Thank you, Amber. That brings us to Shannon and Charter Impact.
Sorry, I was trying to keep my video off to improve my bandwidth, but I'll try to come on at least when I'm talking. So we presented draft committee goals to the committee last meeting, and then we spent the first part of the time kind of reflecting on those, choosing which ones we wanted to keep in, and then brainstorming what potential goals we thought were left out. And we are now in the phase of Hope and I need to schedule some time to wordsmith them, and then they will be ready to be looked at again and finalized at the meeting a week from today.
So let's just go ahead. Let's clarify this publicly. So is it you, John, and I, Shannon, or just you and I? Because John and I thought it was he and I. So now is a good time to clarify. I'm very happy if it's you and I. So I will shoot you an email after the meeting, and we'll get some time on the calendar.
Great.
Sorry, I just housekeeping, when it fits. Or picture taking. Sorry, that brings us to Nancy and development. I don't miss anything, John.
So the development committee met what seems to be a long time ago, but it was really, I believe, about 3 weeks ago. And we met and finalized the content for the Explorer Partners website, which was going to be my main discussion item during this here. But I'm glad Hope introduced everybody to the Explorer Partners website. We're really excited because it highlights our top Explorer partners. It's been, really difficult just in general with, keeping up with, donations and whatnot. So John is navigating to the site, which is great, to give you all preview. Our next meeting is next week, and we will be working on our initiative for 9th grade field trip to the Tolerance Museum down in Los Angeles. And so we will be having a committee workshop on Monday around that initiative. We're pretty excited about that. And it's loading, but it's all those beautiful pictures that are loading. And a huge shout out to Ashley, who really put our content together and took all of our feedback and made it real. So it's beautiful. So thank you very much to the team for their hard work.
Yeah, no, it really does. It's turned out amazing. I just love it. And I love, so it's going to go ahead and reload. I love the slider at the top, like the celebrations for certain Explorer partners, the spotlight. They turned out so well, Ashley. So thank you. Sean in finance.
Okay. I agree with Nancy that it does really seem like it was a long time ago that we met. I had to actually pull up the agenda because I'd kind of forgotten what we did, even though when I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, totally that. So looking at the agenda, we looked at the audit, which I believe is on the agenda for this evening for the whole board, along with the budget. I'll get the word eventually. We got an update from Steve on high school furniture, and then we had a closed session, and I cannot say any more than that.
Yeah, it's awkward. I get you. Thank you, Sean. Governments did meet tonight for the first time since September, actually. And we had a really robust discussion around the reopening plan and sort of next steps. And so I'm sure that will all work itself out or come up in our discussion later tonight. So I will save specific updates for that. With that, John, it's time for your executive director report.
Takes me a minute. The computer is moving a little slowly, as you saw the Explorers Partners page loading. I've got YouTube streaming, a special streaming software, multiple screens. That's why I stood back and took a picture. There's a lot going on in this poor little MacBook Air here.
We might need to get you, a Pro with the new M1 chip. Maybe that's something we could consider as an expenditure.
Oh, hey, Mr. Corvink's on the line. Mr. Corvink, let's talk about that offline. Yes, yes. Thank you. Hey, I got some great slides for you tonight. We have quite a few presentations tonight because of high school. We have first interim. We have reopening schools. So I'll try to walk through my pieces quickly. I do have a parent survey tonight, which is our typical kind of December jam. So I have great data for you to dive into, but I'll go as slow or as fast as you'd like me to. But let's dive in. You guys can see my slides? Yeah? The very first slide is a note from our community. The very first celebration I want to give is a note that was given to me to celebrate to our board from the Christie family, Danielle and Brian Christie. And if you wouldn't mind, I put it on that slide, but I'm gonna open it up on this little doc I have here and read it to you because they really wanted this to be a celebration in front of the board, and it was just too long to make a board comment, so I made it a celebration because there's no rules for celebration. So she says, Mrs. Christie says, "Hello. I recently watched your board meeting, first one I've ever watched, and Danielle's been part of the organization for a long time. And I loved how you celebrate staff at the beginning. So I'm sending some celebrations I would like you to share at your next board meeting." Okay, it says, "We've been truly amazed by our kids' 1st and 5th grade teachers this year. Mrs. Weiner and Mrs. Leggett have gone above and beyond to connect with every member of the class. Our kids adore them. Despite distance learning being quite a challenge for our son, at first he has improved so much and is excited to log in each morning and see Mrs. Weiner and his classmates. I'm in awe of how she maintains structure and excellent classroom management through a virtual setting! Exclamation point. The phonics program she is using has been amazing in helping our son learn to read, and I'm thrilled to see it's evidence-based, close parenthesis. That's a smiley face. She is a phenomenal teacher. Now, our daughter in Mrs. Leggett's class, our daughter is in Mrs. Leggett's class and is having one of the best years of her academic career. Mrs. Leggett truly cares for each of her students, and we're amazed how well she has gotten to know our daughter despite the distance. She will often send emails to ask about her hobbies and shows a genuine interest in her well-being. Not only is she taking care of our daughter social emotionally, but our daughter is also more motivated than ever to succeed academically. Mrs. Leggett is a truly exceptional teacher. Lastly, we want to celebrate your amazing special education team. Our son has significant needs and an IEP. We were extremely concerned at the start of the pandemic about regression and what was going to happen to him. We watched as other districts shut down or significantly reduced special education services and could not have been more grateful when Westlake started offering in-person services for our son this past October. Some therapies just won't work in a virtual setting. And we just had our son's IEP where we found out he met the majority of his goals. We are so thankful for Ms. Matson, for Ms. Donna and Sarah, for Ms. Cece, for Ms. Bessie, for working with our son while still following safety protocols. We know that none of the above celebrations could happen without the excellent leadership of your admin team and board. So this celebration extends to everyone, every one of you on those teams as well. You are all truly making a difference in our lives and the lives of so many at Westlake Charter School. Thank you. All right, I just want to read that to you. I promise I'll race through the rest of the slides, but a wonderful celebration from the Christie family. They have two amazing children here at our school. Hey, the Olympic Triathlon was a huge success. I think somebody said it tonight that we're trying to do things that we used to do even when we were here on campus. And I think we've done an exemplary job as a whole community, not staff, not parents, everybody as a community trying to do these things that we do because we are who we are. We're just having to do them in innovative and new ways. And this Olympic Triathlon was phenomenal. You were there, so I won't double down, but I could talk all night just about that one alone. Our high school is starting to come into focus. We're starting to see the future. We've got the plans in place. We're starting to tweet and Facebook and make the videos and put it out there. And as Ashley alluded to, we're starting to see, the lottery applications trickle in, and it is joyful to see that happening. The next celebration I have to open the night is that the virtual clubs after school is so Westlake. Houston was on here a moment ago. I don't know if she's still here, but this after school clubs idea came up at a coffee talk back on the Del Paso campus and came to fruition when we moved to this campus. And now to see it go virtual is like, way to go, Westlake. So that is Amy Wells and that whole team, Mrs. Caillou and Chavez, all the people doing that. Good on you guys for making clubs, bringing clubs back and doing it virtually. That is phenomenal. I think Mrs. Caillou said we had 130 kids attend a club meeting this week. 130 kids coming to an after-school club this week. Multiple clubs, not all at one time. Hey, the Westlake Charter High School Spirit Council is 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who are really having phenomenal conversations about what kind of high school do we want to build and what kind of school spirit and explorer pride do we want to build. It's led by some of our web students that Mr. Lockteff was talking about. It is absolutely mind-blowing when we ask these students, hey guys, we got to start talking about a mascot. What does it mean to be a Westlake Explorer? The things that they told us and the way that conversation is shaping up. You think you know Westlake? Nobody knows Westlake like an 8th grader that's been here since kindergarten. That is a phenomenal group right there. And this last week we had the Innovators Invitational as a first annual. I'm sure we'll have it again. We had over 30 high school educators from around the state of California come in and advise us on what are the most innovative and best high school practices going on right now on your location, because we'd like to steal them and put them in our location as we open our high school. That was a wonderful night, and it was all shepherded by our team. Big shout out to Jessica Block, our kindergarten teacher extraordinaire, who has been the teacher of the year at this school, I think back in maybe 2017-18. But this year, she is the teacher of the year for CAPQ, an organization that represents the 12 counties that surround Sacramento. So out of thousands of teachers in the region, Jessica Block was recognized as their teacher of the year this year. And now she's in the running for the statewide teacher of the year. And so congratulations to her. If you know her, you know why she got that. And then Joey's Food Locker, our donation window opened up December 7th. We already have a couple wagons full of food. Keep it coming, everybody. I think the best celebration for me about the coffee talk, and Houston spoke to, is my dear friend and the founder of Joey's Food Locker and the operator of Joey's Food Locker, Mr. Joel Schwieger from Natomas High School, came to the coffee talk and told us that story. And there was a dry eye in the house. He's a wonderful man. He's a great organization, and we're really proud to partner with them. So great stuff, Westlake. I'm going to dive into some strategic actions and some updates. Stop me if you need me. I'll talk about high school planning a little bit, just quickly, and then I'll talk about a little lottery outreach, and then we'll dive into updates. So high school planning, on the outdoor setting, we're looking at okay, if we're going to be in a temporary facility, which is a very possible scenario for us, what might the outside of that look like? How can we do what we do now. Westlake Charter School currently, kindergarten through 8th grade, uses the indoor, outdoor, flexible space so much. We don't want to lose that. It's really part of our K-12 thought process. So we're engaging with some landscape architectures who are drawing up some possibilities of what it could look like outside, even if we only had access to blacktop. How can we carve that out? Maybe bring in some raised beds, plant some greenery on top, and have some shade structures that made outdoor learning come to life no matter where we land. We're really considering what's possible, getting really creative. We're even discussing items that can be crowdsourced. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So all you Westlake Charter family members, listen up, because this is me talking about you. You can see the pictures on the screen. Those are all pictures from local restaurants in Sacramento that have moved out into the street. The Beast and Bounty and these different places. Well, if you look closely at those pictures, these are like, plywood structures that create these planter boxes and these seating areas. Well, the landscape architecture said, hey, I can design a bunch of that custom furniture for you, and I can have it built for you. But if you guys just want to take the blueprints and have some parent volunteers build a bunch of cool structures and we put it outside, well, you'll save a ton of cash. So, hey, families, if you got a sawhorse at home and a drill, we're going to need you here because I think we're going to do a bunch of really exciting stuff outside, and we're going to need your help for it. More on that later. Talking about indoor, when we go indoors to whatever facility that we're in the fall, we're already discussing painting. We're getting some bids on like what will it cost if we have to paint, what type of lighting is appropriate, necessary, how much wall vinyl to put up our logos and things like that. We want this thing to scream Westlake, and even indoor plants. I mean, if we end up at a facility that doesn't have a lot of greenery, how can we bring some greenery in? And it's really important to us, you guys, because a couple of the locations that we look at are commercial spaces. These freshmen only get to be freshmen one time. And so they're not going to walk into a commercial space and be like, oh, well, someday we're going to have a nice location. No. Day one, we're going to have an amazing Westlake Charter High School for our freshmen to walk in and be like, yes, look what these people did for us. And so all of these conversations are a big deal for us, but they're also expenditures that I'm going to bring back to the board, as is this one here. Furniture is a big deal. We have to have enough furniture for 125 students to be in multiple locations throughout the day, including flex spaces, learning labs, science classroom materials. And so we're expecting to bring to the board in the next several months this furniture package, because with the amount of time it takes to ship, we're going to have to get that order out in the next several months. And so I want to let you guys know that that's what's coming. I mean, it's all coming together, but it'll all come back to you for some approval at some point in the near future. Let's talk about who's going to come to the high school. Well, let's outreach some people. You might have noticed in N Magazine, we've got not one, but two long ads. One long ad is all about the kindergarten through 9th grade lottery that's wide open. Come on and get in. And one ad is just about 9th grade. Do you have a 9th grader? So that's your N Magazine piece right there. Again, same thing in the Natomas Buzz on their online piece and in their Instagram and on their Facebook and in their Twitter. The Natomas Buzz is putting us out there, making sure that we're our K-9 and our 9-12 are getting advertised. And then postcards. This is fascinating. This is the postcard that we've typically used right here. The only big change is instead of kindergarten through 8th grade, it says kindergarten through 9th grade. We buy a list of addresses, and this list has 7,500 addresses for people who have a 4-year-old through a 14-year-old, and they're all going to get a postcard here. But there's another postcard that goes out just to the people that have a high school, 12 to 14-year-old, and they'll get this one. So those families will actually get 2 postcards, and that's another 3,000 postcards. So really what we're looking at here is 11,500 mailers that are going out to all the zip codes, as well as all the digital pieces that we're talking about through Facebook, Twitter, and the Buzz, and then, of course, the N Magazine. Now, here's a change. We typically go and put flyers and posters throughout our community, all the businesses, and we love that piece. It creates a lot of partnership for us. But we just decided that with the escalating COVID crisis, that having our having our employees walk around and interact with business owners door to door and ask if we can put this up was probably just as a risk reward. We just thought it probably wasn't appropriate for us to do that, and so we decided to scale that piece back. But we kind of doubled up on the postcard piece. We're trying to get the word out there. Mrs. Batten's doing a lot of phone a friend type campaigns, and so you'll see more of that later. Outreach we think is going well. Lottery numbers are going to come up in a bit, and the lottery numbers you're going to see are all before any of this advertising really lands. Mrs. Patel?
Chasing the button. I just want to say to the board members and the families, like, never, and I know Miss Batten talked about it in the coffee talk, like, never underestimate how far that clicking that share will go. So when you see a Facebook post of the lottery or all, the ninth grade posting, instead of just liking but the sharing, I got 3 phone calls or text messages on Friday night, and not until the third one when I was like, it must be the Friday night game, everybody's filling out lottery applications, did the person say, well, you shared it, and so of course everybody's calling. So you never know who's watching. Click that share button because it can reach people you weren't thinking about.
Yeah. We're asking everybody, if you see a Facebook post, if you see one of the Twitter posts, please retweet and reshare, because if you do it as a family member, a board member, the person on the receiving end goes, oh, well, this is posted by somebody I trust. Okay, what's that all about? So yeah, help us out, everybody. Really push the word. We want numbers. Speaking of numbers, we'll talk about them here. We're going to talk about the COVID-19 plan and response updates. I just have one update for you tonight on that piece, and then lottery updates. So recall that we do this every month. You've granted me the authority to spend money that is normally outside of our expenditures in response to COVID, as long as I come back every month to update the board on what those are. This month we increased the CBO's credit card limit because the Google Voice expenditures have gotten a little more expensive, as well as enrollment application outreach. All the postcards, it started rising, so we increased that credit limit there, and wanted to report that to you. This is the update on lottery. You might notice that website right there is in Spanish. That'll come into play in just a moment. Lottery update. We are trafficking all of our lottery through joinwestlake.com. We started doing that 4 or 5 years ago, and we started going to lotteries 3 years ago. So joinwestlake.com is where all the traffic is going. That drives to our website now. So it used to go directly to a Google form, but it goes to a website. Why would you want it to go to a website? Because our website now translates. So this website right here is all in Spanish because I translated it to Spanish. So our enrollment process, if you get them to joinwestlake.com, you're getting them to a multilingual platform. And from that multilingual platform, they click straight to lotteries, which I went and looked it up, and lotteries also translates that platform because they use the Google widget as well. And so all of our families who go to joinwestlake.com end up in a multilingual platform for the entire application process. So I just want to celebrate that. Thanks to Mr. Korvik. I know he works hard on that piece. So good on you. I think that's going to increase accessibility for our families. Let's talk updates. Who has turned in a lottery application? In 2018, on opening day, so this is our first lotteries, maybe it's our second. Anyway, 2018 opening day, we had 208 applications on day one. And at the end, total applications, we broke 1,000. We had 1,070. So in your mind, that was 2018. How many did we have last year? Here we go. Guess. 77. We had in 2019, we had 307. So we went up 100. And we ended up with 1,383 applications for 110 kindergarten openings, right? So this is the point where we now have a wait list, literally like 1,200 students long at the beginning of the year. So in 2020, now we've opened the high school, we had 481 applications on day one. and we have no idea how many we'll have at the end of day 60. A couple notable benchmarks is in 6th grade, which is typically a big an area where we always want to have a big draw. We really boosted last year, and it's happening again this year in 6th grade. We already have 32 applications in high school on day 10 of 60 days, and those 11,000 postcards haven't landed yet, and so we've got a lot of really good work to do in that area. We're averaging about 3 per day. If we were to hold at 3 per day in the high school, you would have plenty of applications to fill your freshman class. So we'll come back in January 14th at your board meeting, let you know how we're looking. We know there'll be a surge at the end, but we're going to push all the way through and make sure that those applications keep coming.
John, I was just wondering when our current students confirm that they're enrolling in 9th grade, if they're going to make that decision.
Yeah, that's a great point. So all of the 8th graders currently are do not have to apply for the lottery. So they are, pre-enrolled in the 9th grade. However, we have asked already that all of the 8th grade families make a commitment by March. I think there's a day in March that we've already established. The reason being is we'll do the lottery in early March, right? And then we will get our wait list, and then we'll start to say, okay, we know that we only have 112 8th graders, and we need 125 freshmen, so we can pull that first part of the lottery and say we know how many spots we can give out. Then we have to turn to those 8th grade families and say, okay, are you giving away your spot or are you staying? We've also dangled a little bit of a reasoning behind it and say, hey, we're going to hold a big freshman-only event in May where we want to get the whole freshman class together. So just in case any family's like wobbling on the fence about like holding on to their spot to the last minute, because we don't want them to hold it to August if they're really going to leave, because it's harder to fill those spots in August because people make their decisions. So we'll be talking to people. Plus, Mrs. Batten has already had a conversation with every single family in the 8th grade already to date. So she has a good sense of who's in, who's out, and who's on the fence. And so we'll be talking to those fence sitters, regularly. It's a good question. Any other questions, team? Good. Okay, I'm gonna do some parent survey results. I'll try and race through them, but please stop me if you're interested. You recall that each year now what we've been doing is creating the average score on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of the questions. Remember, there's 5 questions, and they each rank out on a scale of 1 to 10. This first question, how would you rate Westlake's openness to innovation and willingness to continually improve? And then in this year's question, we actually put during distance learning. Last year in the fall, we had 126 families take our survey. This year, we had 122 families take our survey. All the way across the board in all 5 categories, we dropped about a half a point to a quarter point. So you'll see the example here from 9.29 down to 9.22. Not a dramatic dip, but it is a dip. I don't know whether it's expected or not. I don't know whether or not we should say I don't think we should ever be okay with less satisfaction. However, some of it may be attributed to our current condition and being in distance learning. We'll certainly see that in the academic ranking and the social emotional ranking. I don't think we should ever be satisfied with dropping, but I think maybe some of that is potentially explainable. So we're still ranking above 9 in that category. In the rate Westlake's efforts to create opportunities for your family to collaborate with the school, right? School and community collaborate. We went from a 9.3 to an 8.8. The narratives really explain that out. A lot of people were chiming in and said, hey, I used to be able to volunteer and do so much. Can you come up with more ways for me to be involved in the school during distance learning? And I think that's legitimate. I mean, I think there were 1,000 ways to walk on this campus last year and jump in between the chili cook-off to all the things. It's harder to volunteer today, and we get that. So it's good feedback. We're still close to a 9, which I'm sure a lot of schools would be very proud of that number. I think we want to be up above it, but it's a little bit of it's about a half-point dip. Rate Westlake's ability to prepare students with academic readiness. So this is from an 8.3 to an 8.5, which kind of worries me. I mean, I really want above a 9 in academics. I get the hit this year numerically. As we go through the narrative on this, I'll kind of talk about it. It kind of hits you from both sides of high and low. I think people who want academic extension for their, academically prepared and ready students are like, hey, do something for the high achiever. But then also the families who are like, hey, my kid's really struggling. We need more supports. And you're seeing both sides of that. And I think it's something we need to continually focus on. Rate Westlake's ability to create a school culture where your student feels socially and emotionally supported and connected. Again, from a 9 to an 8.5. Again, I looked through the narratives on those. We coded every single narrative. There's 205 narrative pieces of feedback. I coded every single one of them, looking very closely, especially at that one. There's a lot of feedback that says, hey, my student needs some supports, and so we're working with our student support services on that. And then how would you rate Westlake's communication? And again, from a 9.37 to a 9.14. So again, I think when you're looking overall, I feel like we've dropped a little bit, and we have taken all the narrative comments and brought them back to admin, and we're going to start fishing out how we can build things up. But, from a 40,000 foot view, still looking at the chart on a scale of 1 to 10, all 5 areas are rating above 8 and 9, and it feels okay to say, hey, we're still doing a pretty darn good job. I think a lot of schools would look at that and say, I'd like to be that school in the middle of a global pandemic when school has been in distance learning since August. So little flashback here on the narratives. A year ago, everybody was talking about homework. Give me more homework so I know what's happening at school. Nobody's asking what's happening at school. Everybody's in the kitchen with their kid going, I got it. I know what's happening at school. Stop letting me be at school with my kid, I think is more what we're hearing. Just funny that not one comment about homework, because all the work is being done at home now. So here's your rankings. I just want you to be able to see them one question at a time, so you can see the rankings. Because what's interesting and telling about these rankings, when you look at them in this way as opposed to the previous way, yeah, we did go down a quarter point or a half point, but most of that was drawn down by like not a lot, 5 or 6 really low scores. People going through the survey and giving 1s. And those are really unhappy people, and we want to find them and help them. But they're still in every single category. The highest category is 10s, 9s. So it's worth looking at that. We did some coding on all the narratives in this particular category. I don't know if you guys can read that, but a couple of comments on, hey, I need help with social emotional. Couple comments on don't rely so much on augmented online platforms. Just get more time with my teacher. Support English language learners came up a couple of times. Concern with scheduling consistency. And this one, these next 5 codes are going to go throughout all 5 areas. It's interesting how it comes up. Some specialties piece. I need more academic support. Improve homeschool communication. Now this code captures a lot of things. And it's interesting, and we'll take this out to our teams, and we'll try to help where we can help. But I think what it's saying is, hey, I got 3 kids and 3 different ways of receiving communication. And sometimes the schedule changes from one teacher to the other, and I wasn't sure it was going to happen. And it's good feedback. It's not all angry. It's good and really helpful and useful for us. Support high achievers. Increase student engagement and motivation. And then the last one is keep it up. So anytime somebody gave us a positive comment, we just code it as keep it up. And you can see in this category, that one was the highest one. It got over 15 comments. The other ones, got 5 comments or less. But each one of them is worth reading and looking at. If you wanted access, I'm sure I could provide that. Again, that one was about, are we being innovative? This next one is about, are we creating opportunities to collaborate? And again, you can see that curve going up toward 10. These ones really break out about academic support. Hey, as a parent, how can I help my student? Consistency with scheduling, social emotional learning. This one, you can see social emotional starting to grow here. And when we get to the SEL chart, that one gets really big. Improve household communications and keep it up. This one is about the academic readiness. And I think this one's really important because look how keep it up moves from your highest bar now to the middle of the pack. still lots of like, hey, keep it up, you're doing great. But support for high achievers and academic support are the two most common narratives here. Well, if you combine them just into like academic support, I don't care who it's for, high achievers, low achievers, any achievers, that bar gets really long if you're just talking about academic support. So there's some really good feedback for our team in there. We've talked, Jed, at a previous meeting about how to just really focus on continuing to do a better job of distance learning day after day, week after week, month after month. There's some good feedback in here that says, all right, there's room to grow, and we want that. This is the one about social emotional. Over 20 comments saying, hey, not only do I feel like, maybe they gave us a lower ranking, a 6, a 7, or an 8 out of 10. People gave us great feedback in comments and some suggestions as well. And again, very little of this was overtly, it's not negative. It's just people telling us their story, and those stories are super helpful. We'll disseminate these stories to the SEL and the Student Support Services team. Amy Wells, Christina Ike, that whole team will get this information and be able to customize supports and help kids out. And the last one is about communications, and you only see 3 groups there. Really, that communications one talks a lot about the homeschool communication around scheduling, and some keep it up in SEL. I'll put all of them on one chart for you here. This is 204 narrative comments, and these are the actual number of responses for each one. 12 responses concerned about scheduling, 16 about supporting high achievers, 29 about homeschool communications. That really rings a bell for me, because we got a high score in communications, but a lot of narrative that says, hey, there's some inconsistency. So we'll drill down and help the teams get better on that. And then academic support, 34 comments about SEL. So that's a big one too for our team to look at. How can we go in and say, hey, as I look at our academic data that we're starting to look at, our achievements doing well, but there seems to be need for more support. As we look at our social emotional data, how many students are we referring for tier 2 or tier 3 social emotional support? Does it match up with this? That's our job right now, is how can we've been talking about aligning some of our schedules so that in the next month, we can really start to launch potentially some lunch bunch groups, some social counseling groups, and might that be the support that these families are looking for? Just to look at it kind of visually, this is on a percentage of responses, right? With Keep It Up kind of being your largest one, with the SEL academic support running side by side there, as well as homeschool communication. So just to again an eyeball on what it looks like from 40,000 feet, right? We've designed this to say we demonstrate what is possible when school and community collaborate to create student inspiring adults with academic, social, emotional readiness to lead as global citizens. And so there's your 5 charts right there. Now I get down into the weeds and I worry about every quarter point drop, and I've probably taken too much time already. But for me, every little piece of feedback is incredibly important. But also the global view is that if you look at those data charts, far more to the right than to the left, and that speaks highly of the work that our teachers, our classified staff, and that admin team are doing. Any questions on how this data came to be, what we're going to do with it, or what it says? No? Reach out.
I really just find it interesting how really consistent it actually is, right? You might have, if you were to guess or have estimated in advance, you might have maybe expected even more volatility or shifting in the data. So the relatively small shifts you have seen, I just think it's a phenomenal job and shows how wonderful Westlake really is doing overall.
Yeah, thanks. I'm proud of us. I think we're doing a good job, and I think the parents are appreciative of the work we're doing. I think nothing is good or bad unless compared. It's so hard to compare schools because your kids typically only go to one school. But if you have friends at another school, then you start to swap notes. Josh, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Is there a way diving down? I want to focus a little bit on the ones that want to help more. Is there a way we might be able to connect them with Wave? I mean, Amber talked about needing community committee members. I'm sure they've got stuff. Can we try to connect them that way?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, one of the problems with the survey instrument is that it is an anonymous survey. So
Gotcha.
I've got this data, and I want to connect the dots, but I can't. But I think we can somehow say in the Westlake weeklies and things like that, we heard you. Here are some things we can get to you. Honestly, I'd say put it in the Westlake Weekly. I track the data on who's reading the weekly, and since we've gone to distance learning, our Westlake Weekly readership is over 650 clicks a week, which is we only have 635 families. That is way up from where we've been. So if we are putting opportunities in the weekly, I think people will get it. So it's a good call, Josh. Team, any other thoughts, questions, concerns? Very good.
I was just going to say, in terms of SEL communication, maybe there's a communication. I know a lot of families are observing at home, so they know what's going on. But maybe communication, like about the curriculum that we have developed and how we're implementing it too, maybe could help. Because I've seen the curriculum that's been developed in middle school, and it's pretty robust and thorough. And of course, there's always room for development, but just to share out some of those practices
good point.
And philosophies and the work that's going on behind the scenes might help too.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's probably a problem with the survey instrument itself in that, like, we're asking about social emotional, and as a parent, I'm telling my narrative. My child is struggling. Let me tell you my story. If the question were like more about the actual resources that we're utilizing to develop long-term SEL learning, it would be different. So yeah, I get you, boss. But I like the idea of broadcasting exactly what we're doing, so people could see that. So it might be a bit of a problem.
I just want to pause on that too, and as a board to reflect on the need for social emotional learning, and us to think about where our students are mentally at this point. I know we're taxed from staring at a screen for 12 hours. I'm seeing blurry right now. And kids, I talk to kids and they're having real issues. They're watching little brothers and sisters and helping them online, doing chores, trying to get their work done. So I think it's just really important that we continue to not only communicate what we're doing, but also to just continue to build up our teachers so that they can facilitate those social emotional programs.
Yeah, I think finding a way to listen more as well. This is a good opportunity. This parent survey is a good opportunity for us to listen, but it's anonymous listening. If a child is struggling at home, we need to hear about it and know about it so we can respond to it. So, but I agree, boss. Like SEL, also you mentioned teachers, making sure we're taking care of our adults because they are our first responders in this field, and they need to be healthy so they can do this work. So, yeah, good comment.
And just a second, Ashley, I see you though. And Vasa, we did talk about that quite robustly in governance tonight as part of the reopening plan. So I know that there'll be more discussion later tonight on SEL and social emotional health for our entire community. I think, at least I anticipate that being part of the conversation. On communications, I forget, John, I know it's anonymous, but do you get it by grade level at all? No, right?
No. I would love to, because you could run some really interesting analysis by grade level or any independent variable, but no, we just asked the questions.
No, I only mention it because I felt like communication has been a moving target for you, and for the school we've done many different iterations of trying to communicate, and then more emails, less emails, one thing, and so there's listening and there's communicating, and I think it's just going to be a very interesting piece moving forward about which part of it is. That's all.
Yeah.
It's just, and now I hear nothing, and so you think you get too many, and then you get nothing, and so it's just an interesting transition. And so I was thinking, like going into middle school and having that sort of student responsibility. Vasa, when you saying it made me think of it. Like they're seeing maybe more going on in the classroom than they know about, but that's partially intentional, right? Because you're trying to build executive functioning skills in your middle schooler, so when they get to high school, they know how to do certain things for themselves. And so we always see this, and so it's always, I think every time I probably mention grade levels. But Ashley, I saw you had your physical hand raised, so sorry to have cut in front of you.
Oh no, you're fine. I've had this on my mind for a while. So as Vasa brings it up and we see it in the data here, I think that COVID has sort of highlighted something that maybe we could jump off of into our Westlake Weekly each week, and adding a small little blurb each week that helps start to unpack and explain our philosophy and what we do and why we do it. I know that there is a team of some awesome educators working on an SEL support night for families, and that's in the works, and that's going to come out soon, really soon. But in addition to that, before parents were looking at what we were doing all day, every day, parents were like, oh, they do that thing called morning meeting, and they do this thing and this thing. And so I know that they're supported, but now they see it. And for some families who don't have the understanding behind the why, they're just talking all the time. They're just talking all the time. And I've had families ask for understanding on that. Like, you spend more time talking than doing letter practice. And when the understanding is built there, well, this is morning meeting and this structure means this, and the reason behind this, the understanding that's built becomes, oh, that's SEL support. Got it. And so I feel like this data might be highlighting the fact that the parents are watching and not understanding some of these really strategic, smooth in and out moves that all of our teachers do, that are like, oop, I'm going to pause this and support some SEL because my kids are losing it. And now we're going to go back. Our SEL support, but they don't know that. And they don't have that, they don't work in this field. And so my husband doesn't get it. He's like, what are you guys doing? And I have to unpack it for him all the time. And he lives with an educator. So I think just an idea or a suggestion to add to the weekly is like just a little building understanding piece might change these numbers, because they might realize how much SEL support they're getting.
Well, and for you, Ashley, I mean, as a kindergarten teacher, I could really see that being true, right? Because at least the other grades potentially have had the opportunity to watch or hear about morning meeting from their kiddos, whereas your kiddos are kicking it off completely just online. And so it's a whole new world, a whole new school, and then a whole new reason of why. So I think that's really cool.
And thinking about how often, because I'm sure in distance learning, I feel like I do it more in distance than in real life, but maybe that's just not what I remember. We pivot. So you pivot because they need SEL support. They're losing it. They're not paying attention. They're not absorbing what you're learning. And then you pivot back. And I know our teachers are doing that pivoting back and forth to keep their attention and keep their learning as high as they can all the time. But it might not look like SEL support if you didn't understand it.
And please, I'm going to cut
I know we're maybe going a little on a tangent, but I did want to just kind of bring it back to what John said about listening. And one of the other categories was community feeling disconnected and not listened to. So, of course, we're doing coffee talk. We're collecting survey data. And I wonder if there's a more strategic, a time where people can come voice specific concerns on these categories and tell those stories. I think if staff, classified, certificated staff hear those stories, they're more they're going to be maybe double down on those practices and really and be more strategic about what they're doing in their classes as well.
Very good. Anybody else have a thought on parent feedback? Unfortunately, without having given you the feedback, it's hard to represent. You're partly right on, both of you guys, partly right on with some of the feedback. There's some nuanced data in there, so please, Patel, don't make assumptions that people are saying anything that you're not doing anything well. What a lot of the data says is my child is struggling. That's all. It doesn't say you're not doing morning meeting well enough. It doesn't say we're not collecting enough data or that we're not listening. It just says, hey, there's 35 people who, most of them were like, hey, my student needs some more SEL support. Basically what they're saying is, my child's struggling. And so, I agree, though. Let's be listeners. Any other thoughts on parent data?
No, I'm not surprised that readership for the weekly is really up. John, I think people are craving some certainty and that sort of support. And so it doesn't surprise me that, people are going to the weekly to just have that basis point, that sort of rock that they can rely on. So I really appreciate staff very consistently keeping the message clear, and people know where to look for what they need to know. And I just really want to acknowledge that. I'm sure there's always room for changes and improvement, but staff's taken on a lot of work to make sure that gets out on time every week, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I've loved participating on the podcast, so whenever you want me, I am there for you.
Yeah, big shout out to that team. A lot of people put a lot of work into that, and so I love it. Hey, that is the end of my slides. I'll go back to the agenda if there's no other thoughts, questions, or concerns regarding any of my report.
John, but would you mind just checking for any public comments before we hit the consent agenda?
Yeah, I was just over there and I hadn't seen any, but let me take another peek. We are
okay.
We're good.
Perfect. So tonight we have 4 items on our consent agenda. As always, board members can pull any one of those items for discussion, or I am certainly willing to accept a motion to approve A through D.
So I'd like to move the consent agenda A through D.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and count Nancy as the motion because many of you chimed in at the same time, which I totally appreciate. Who would like to be the second?
I'll
Shannon.
second.
Perfect. Thank you, Shannon. Amy, will you please take the vote?
Yes. Maybe. Yes. Hope?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Sasha?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
And Jed?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Amy. So that brings us to our first action item of the night. Accept and approve WCS's 2020-2021 first interim budget. And I believe this one's going to Steve.
It is indeed. Let's talk some budgets. John, do you want me to drive on my side?
Nope, can't let you, because if you do, then it won't be on YouTube. It all has
Yeah,
to run
the
through,
YouTube, Steve, the YouTube.
it all has to run through this. So I will clickety-click for you, sir.
Right, gotcha. Well, welcome. We can kind of move to the next slide then. So tonight we'll be taking a look at a couple things real quickly. First is just looking at some budget timelines and then digging into the WCS first interim budget. Next slide. You can see that we're right kind of where we need to be at this point in time in approving the first interim tonight, which is due to our authorizer at the County Office of Ed by December 15th. So we're right there. Then, of course, the audit, which was just approved, needs to be approved by that same date as well. And the audit goes, again, to our SELPA, goes to the County Office of Education, goes to our authorizer, goes out to many different areas. So it's great to have a clean audit this year, and we can kind of share that with those different groups. So we're right where we need to be this year. Next slide. So if you recall, back in June, when we approved our budget, we were looking, it was kind of a crazy time, right? We were thinking about 10 to 15% LCFF cuts. A lot was going on. We, of course, finally approved our budget And then the state kind of came in after us and did not significantly cut LCFF and instead decided to defer quite a bit of funds. So the adjustment really that you see between the adopted budget and first interim budget on the LCFF side is just that, is that funding in that for the LCFF was held flat. And again, you'll see no COLA going forward in the budget as well. You do see some growth, and that's primarily due to the addition of the high school grades coming in the out years, but from a straight LCFF standpoint, it remains flat. The LCFF has also been adjusted for a 3-year rolling average of our unduplicated student count rate, which just sits over 38%. So that's included in the budget as well. There are some additional pockets of money that actually arrived this year. One of them is the learning loss mitigation funds of about $475,000. So when you look at our adopted budget and kind of recall back to that, there was quite a bit of red at the bottom. Now we've kind of swung the other way a little bit because for various reasons. One is this, and again, there are learning loss mitigation funds coming into play. The second really is due to special education funds, which will be ongoing. So in the state adopted budget, Governor Newsom committed to increasing the state's investment in special education, which is a big win for many different reasons. But for Westlake, it accounts to about $78,000 or so of additional funding to support that program. Of course, BASE is a program to take a look at this year. We're continuing to invest in BASE. Distance learning caps are open. Students are being supported. But on the revenue side, of course, we're not collecting as much revenue as we have in years past. So you'll notice between adopted budget and first interim, revenue has gone from about $360,000 anticipated down to about $190,000 anticipated. So you see a reduction there. Now, that's really based on if we are able to come back into somewhat of a operating capacity, kind of normal operating capacity. So we'll continue to track what that looks like, but in second interim, it may not be shocking to come back with, again, a slightly lower revenue projection on BASE, but it's something that Ms. Holbrook and I, the director of BASE, continue to monitor fairly closely. Silicon Schools is actually in the first interim budget as well. So as you know, and we approved the resolution a few months ago, the partnership with Silicon Schools. So we saw a $200,000 grant investment from them this year. So you'll see that in the budget as well. And of course, last but not least, there's been some great vaccine news come out recently. So hopefully that kind of spurs the economy a little bit, and we can project some growth in LCFF in the coming years. Next one there. There you go. So what is not in the budget? So again, we have grant partnerships with Silicon Schools, and then for many years previously, we've received some growth funding for just normal enrollment growth from the Hastings Growth Fund. So Hastings Growth Fund has outreached for this year already, and if that grant comes through, an additional $24,000 could appear in this year's budget on that front. And then looking at the next 2 years, since we would grow 125 students for our freshman class, the Hastings Growth Fund could provide $125,000, and the Silicon Schools Fund would provide an additional $200,000 as part of the partnership. That would be for next year and the year after. So those are not sitting in the budget right now because they are grant funds, and with grantors, again, we're hopeful, and I would lean toward, we would anticipate that to come again, but again, they are grant funds. And so we just want to be cautious when we look at budgets, that we're budgeting appropriately and ensuring that those funds actually do come in. Next slide. Thank you. So on the expenditure side of the house, some differences between the adopted budget and first interim is, again, in between that time, we hired some new 4th and 5th grade teachers to kind of reduce the class size a little bit. So if students were able to come on campus in a cohort type model, again, teachers will be able to handle kind of a reduced class load. So we brought in some additional staff. Also, we've increased our Director of Student Support Services. You may recall our director was going to step away a little bit last year. Fortunately, she has agreed to come back in a greater capacity, so we're all very thankful for that. And that's also reflected in the first interim budget. And then really just a normal cost that you might anticipate to see in this first interim. Distance learning kits that we've talked about, the investment in that, the investment in the distance learning camps, PPE, cleaning costs, and those type of things are, again, also included in the budget. So looking at kind of the distribution, the revenue and expenditures, kind of where money comes in and how it goes out, the large majority of the money comes from the state through LCFF and the EPA. And on the expenditure side, again, as in years past, it really goes out towards salaries and benefits. About 77% of our total expenditures actually go to those two. I watched a little bit of our authorizer's budget presentation last night, and they're sitting right at about 78%. So we are kind of in alignment with our local partners on that. And then next slide. So here's just a quick snapshot of the budget. You can see at the bottom of the page there kind of the variance between where we are anticipating to be at budget adoption and kind of shift in that, again, for some of the reasons that I talked about a little bit earlier. But again, on a budget standpoint, we have those grant funds in the 2 out years from now, and cash continues to remain positive for the foreseeable future. So with that, I'll take any questions you have, or we'll just look to get approval of the first interim budget.
You're muted, Hope. Oh, but you say Michelle Gibbons on the screen.
There. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was trying to apologize to you, awkwardly, obviously, because, YouTube. Anyway, I apologize for not celebrating you and John and your presentation to NUSD. We did talk about it at Finance, but we never told the whole board about it, I don't believe. It was the quickest, smoothest, tightest presentation I think we've ever had. I sorely missed out on pictures. Which I enjoy each year for reasons that some know. But it really was a great presentation, and I really appreciate the fact that you answered questions in advance. And so I'm not even sure you got a question this year, and that's unheard of. And I don't know if it was COVID or that we are always last, but either way, thank you so much for that and staying on top of this. And so I always know that our books are taken care of and that we are not spending money we don't have. So, sorry, I just want to take a moment at the start to celebrate that. Were there any questions from board members on the first interim budget? Sean, did you have anything you wanted to add as finance chair?
I didn't. I was just going to move it, barring any questions from the gallery.
Perfect. Second. I'll take your motion, and as the other member of finance, I will second. Amy, will you please take a vote? Unless, Josh, you unmuted. Did you have a question?
I was going to second.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to leave you out if you wanted to. Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so Hope?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
And Jed?
Yes.
John, I'm not expecting any public comment on the first interim, but by chance, just in case, even though we've already voted, will you please check?
Yeah, just a moment here. I see. I don't see any.
Perfect. Okay, so that will bring us to action item B, which is accept and approve WCS 2021-2022 academic calendar.
If I might just present one slide on this, we did a little further investigation that I wanted to share with the board, if that's appropriate. I'll put it up now.
Oh, yes, the change. Is that what you're going to present?
Yeah, is that okay, Hope?
Oh, totally.
It's not. It's a proposed change, but it's not a change per se. It's just it's something to consider. We've had I'll put this slide up right now. We've had communications with the charter authorizer, with our authorizer, Natomas Unified School District, and as well as Natomas Charter School MP3. We line up real well with this calendar with all the schools in the front end of the school year Our beginning dates are very close. October break, it lines up for the charters. Winter break is fine. Spring break, however, in the proposed calendar that you have in front of you, spring break aligns with Natomas Charter School, but it does not align with Natomas Unified School District. It's off by just 1 week. The reason that matters to us as educators on the ed side of the house is that these weeks between breaks are what we're trying to keep consistent. So we have a 7-week run from winter break to February break, then a 7-week run from February break to spring break, and then a 6-week run to summer break. If we were to change to match with Natomas Unified School District, the change would be a 7-week, 6-week, 7. So you'd go from a 7-7-6 to a 7-6-7. Not a massive change. So if we would like to adjust the calendar tonight, you could do that, I believe, out loud before moving it. And I just thought I would introduce that so that you would know which calendar you're approving. The only concern with there would be spring break. Anyone have a thought on that? Or need? I'll be quiet.
I mean, it makes sense to me, but I would defer to others who are living with this calendar for thoughts on it.
I think that makes sense and would help a lot of families out as well.
To move it to the Natomas Unified School District combination?
Yeah, to be consistent, I would say though that if there's some like learning issue, like something on the education side that I'm not aware of, then please let me know. But otherwise, I think it would be helpful for families to make it consistent.
That's why I brought it up. We try and keep them pretty consistent, and since it's 7-7-6 versus 7-6-7, we're okay with it moving. If, for example, we were moving it 2 weeks and you were ending up with like an 8-week run before summer, that's a bit of a killer. So we feel okay as a team with moving it to meet up with NUSD if that's the will of the board.
So, John, would you keep on this? So
you'd end up with because our current schedule that you're looking at has a travel day before. You would switch it to a travel day after if you wanted to honor the travel day after Easter. For those families that traveled for Easter, you'd end up with going, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with a Monday off and return to school on Tuesday on the new calendar. So I would shift it to that, still respecting the travel day, because otherwise we'd end up with too many school days, to be honest.
Oh, shucks. I know. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was clear too. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no other board comments, is there a motion for either the calendar as presented in your folder or the one presented on your screen?
I'll move for the one on the screen.
Okay. So, Amy, just to clarify for your motion, just to say to align with the NUSD calendar, including the switching of the travel day. Does that work? Sorry. Yeah. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Great. Thanks, Nancy.
Sorry, I was making notes. Hope?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Wapta?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
And Jed?
Yes.
Thanks, Amy. And I saw Mrs. Batten and Mrs. Sargent join, so I think we're all set for the next discussion item, our high school presentation. So welcome.
Hello. Well, hi. I almost said welcome to you. Hi. Good evening. Thanks for having us. Oh, I'm supposed to start. That's what happens next.
Welcome,
Great.
guys. I'll put your slides up, team.
Thanks.
All right.
It's so fun to have this started on the screen. I feel I'm just so excited about it, and it's also very hard to go so late in the show because so many things nuggets I wanted to drop have already been shared. But I'm gonna share them anyway.
You just do what you want to do. Welcome, Ms. Batten, Mrs. Sargent. Great to have you guys. Slides are all keyed up.
All right, let's go to the next slide, please. So this slide is familiar, and the red box will move at next month's board meeting, but in October, it felt like it would stay there forever, and now this December, it feels like it's sliding very quickly. So we will enter quarter 5 in January, which is exciting. We'll go with exciting.
Right.
In quarter 4, some highlights just to remind us of that our lottery opened in quarter 4. We are continuing our student recruitment. We are beginning the work of recruiting our founding Westlake Charter High School staff, and the High School Spirit Council is also underway. Mr. Ike mentioned our Innovators Invitational, which from the history standpoint, for the first running ever, this event got scheduled and rescheduled more times than anything else probably. It had an in-person version scheduled for May when we started thinking about it last January, and we were had these plans of balloon arches and food. It then transitioned to a virtual event in June where we were told, hey, this past 2 months has been really tough. Can we not come to your event? Can we do it next fall? And so hence our December 3rd date for that event. And it was just really wonderful. I had the pleasure of, we had 5 different breakout rooms with subject areas gathered together to talk about some key innovations that have happened over our period of distance learning, and talk about things we'd bring forward with us, and just some really wonderful high school conversations. We have recordings. If anybody wants to get some notes from that event, I'd be happy to share those notes. And also, I mentioned food. We actually were able to deliver Chipotle to all 32 of our participants. So Westlake does food very well when it comes to events, and we were able to keep that tradition alive, which was I think just a great piece for showing potential staff members something that is such a key part of our school. We've spoken of the lottery and the efforts that have preceded the opening of the lottery on December 1st, and what we will continue to work on through January 31st, and we are eagerly recruiting our 9th grade class, as well as our K-8 lottery for our K-8 lottery as well, and so that work will continue. And Mr. Rick, if you want to go to the next slide, sorry, I'm looking at a slide on my screen too, and I was like, oh, they're not seeing that slide. And then we are finishing up our final videos of our high school series, so we plan to, as facility conversations kind of begin to continue to solidify, have a facility video that just shares more about our facility with our community. And then also a video that I've been so excited about since we began our video series last June. We will also have a video that's our student voice video. So members of our High School Spirit Council will be sharing the work of the High School Spirit Council, sharing what they're excited about for Westlake Charter High School. And I think out of all the videos, I just think this is probably going to be the most impactful, which is hard to say, having been in the previous 6, but they're just so excited about it. So I'm excited for everyone to get to see that piece. And then I wanted to give a shout out to Monica Darris as well, and the work that she's done around our student recruitment marketing campaign. Mr. Corbing, of course, wasn't going to shout himself out, but he has also done a tremendous amount of work and effort in helping to make the pieces that hit our community to talk about our lottery look perfect, and the whole admin team. And so just getting to be a part of that process from a different place this year has been really, really fun. And looking at recruitment in a different way. I think we haven't ever really looked at social media as our main recruitment tool, and we've had a lot of fun playing with the different postings and getting more traction with postings and things like that. I never thought that when I entered education 20 years ago that I would be looking at Facebook analytics so much, but it's fascinating. And so I know the plug has been given several times. I gave it at the coffee talk. I will not stop giving it. If you are active on social media at all, please like and share. One of the best recruitment tool we have are our 600 plus families. We can put the videos out, and we can say the lottery is open, but when a family posts about an experience their child had at Westlake Charter School, a teacher that's made an impact, those are the stories that are connecting the community with the school. And so if you're not on social media, I will send my call to action out that I send out at the coffee talk, which is pick up your phone, text 3 people who you maybe haven't talked to in a while but are part of the community, and say, hey, did you know that I am, a member of Westlake Charter Schools community, and they're opening in 9th grade, and you'll be surprised at the impact that has as well. So the screen and all of the people watching are our best voices, and we just really, it's for us, it's more, the lottery number obviously has a big impact and something we want to be aware of, but it is just ensuring that the opportunity is there for every student that wants it. We talked yesterday about that 8th grader who would be such an amazing fit for our school. And because mom's not on social media and, they're not going to the AIM mail center, so they can't see the poster that normally would be there, they may miss that opportunity. And so it is just a calling for us. It's more than a lottery number, a calling to make sure that every member of our community knows about this school and knows that there's a place for them there, especially because we've intentionally built our freshman class to be larger than our current 8th grade class to welcome community members into it. So I will step off my soapbox. I will quickly get back on it, though, I promise. And just thank you for your help in that effort, and I look forward to liking many of your posts. If you post about it, I will be there and like it. Mrs. Sargent and I are here today. I'm going to hand the floor over to her in a minute. We're going to talk to you about grad requirements as well as more information about our dual enrollment program and our partnership with American River College, and there will be information in January's board packet about these two pieces. So we want to come out ahead of that and just share that with you. So I will mute myself and turn it over to my partner, Mrs. Sargent.
Thanks, Ms. Batten. I'm so excited to be here tonight to share with the board some of our work around graduation requirements. So, Mr. Ike, next slide, please. Why do we have graduation requirements? We wanted to set the foundation for you tonight. We're going to get into kind of the nitty-gritty, but really we have to establish those minimum requirements for students who are going to graduate from Westlake Charter High School. What's that minimum going to be? And we spoke to the board a while back, gosh, it seems like forever ago, around the A through G requirements. And we know at Westlake we have really high expectations, and we have set the bar that all of our students will graduate having exceeded those A through G requirements, which will make all of our graduates eligible to attend college. And when we say all, we mean all. So we're very excited about that. All of our students will graduate college proven. Ms. Batten's going to share a little bit more about that in a little bit, but we're excited about our partnership with American River College. And then our students are going to have lots of opportunities for personalization within our graduation requirements and above and beyond. So we're going to have a full array of elective courses. Students will have all kinds of ARC course options available to them. And we will have the opportunity for students to take UC-approved honors courses to get that depth and rigor. So we're really excited about the options for personalization within our requirements. Our graduation requirement is going to be 260 credits. That's what we're pitching tonight. And that would be the minimum requirement for students to graduate. Now, we know if we do the math on our 4x4 schedule, right, students take 4 courses per term. 1 semester course equals to 1 year credit, which allows students 10 credits per year-long course. The benefit of the 4x4 is students get a year worth of credit in 1 semester. So we have the opportunity for students to take tons and tons of credits. 320 is what they would get if they took all of their credits with us and passed all of their classes. So there's a lot of opportunity in there for personalization, which we're really excited about. Here we have a chart with the nitty gritty, and I'm going to go through each one of these for you tonight. And I want to point out on the left-hand side will be our Westlake Charter High School graduation requirements. And on the right, these are what we've spoken about before, those A through G college entrance requirements. So we wanted to lay these side by side for you tonight so you can see for yourselves how our requirements that we have for our graduates will exceed those A through G requirements. First off, we'll start with history, social science. We're going to require 5 years or 50 credits. That seems a little funky, right? You're like, wait a minute, don't they only go to school for 4 years? Well, remember, a 1 semester class equals a year's worth of credit on a 4x4 schedule. So we, in 9th grade, you'll see we're going to offer a world cultures and geography class and ethnic studies. I think we talked about ethnic studies here at the board a while ago too, and we're going to loop that in for all of our freshmen in 9th grade. Then 10th grade world history, 11th grade US history, and 12th grade American government for 1 semester. And econ. So that totals a whole year. They'll take half a year of government and half a year of econ. So that's 5 years for history, social science. For English language arts, 4 years, students have to take English all 4 years, and that aligns with the A through G requirements. For mathematics, we are going to require 3 years, and we will start with integrated math 1 and offer integrated math 2 and 3, and then a variety of other courses beyond that, but these are our minimum requirements. Next would be science. We're going to require 3 years of science or 30 credits. Our courses to graduate will be physics, biology, and chemistry, but there will be other opportunities beyond that for our students as well. And that's one area where we will exceed those A through G requirements because 3 years are recommended for A through G. On to language other than English, we are going to be offering Spanish. We will require 3 years of Spanish, partially because we have a very robust Spanish program in our K-8, so that'll be a great opportunity for our students to reach a pretty high level. So we're going to exceed that A through G and require 3 years, and students have to get through the second level of that language other than English to meet that A through G requirement. Visual and performing arts, 1 year or 10 credits. College prep elective will be 1 year or 10, which equals 10 credits there. And then general electives, 3 years, and that leads to 30 credits. We'll have to require PE, just like we always do, for 2 years, and that'll lead students to receive 20 credits. And then our college proven elective that we're really excited about, Ms. Batten will talk a little more about the details about college proven, but every student who graduates from Westlake Charter High School is going to have completed one college class that we're very excited about. So that is on there for our requirement as well. And that gets us to our total of 260 credits, and that for a 4x4 schedule, when we did all our research, is right in the ballpark of schools that offer 4x4 schedules range their credits from like 220 to 270. So we're right in the middle. I believe MP3, their requirement and they have a 4x4 is 260 as well. So we're right in line with what, most of our 4x4 schedule schools in our region are requiring. And I just wanted to make one more plug. I know saying that our requirements exceed those A through G requirements, we at Westlake have a philosophy around high expectations, support for all of our students, and all meaning all, and demonstrating what's possible. And so our mission and vision align really well to these proposed graduation requirements. In that we will have a legitimate MTSS structure, personalization, and flex blocks, and a number of other pieces to support all of our students in meeting these rigorous requirements that we're setting forth. With that,
question is now okay. I can wait.
No, okay. Go for it. We can take questions on this section. That would be great.
So my question is around Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So will all freshmen take Spanish 1, or is there a pathway similar to the IM1 question? Oh, I'm getting some blinking, or not some. I'm getting some eyebrows. Sorry.
You're probably not fine. We are working on all of our course sequences, and we are happy to dig into depth and have further conversations around what courses will fall under these requirements. Tonight, we wanted to stick really to what those requirements were, but Ms. Batten and I are happy to meet with any of you and get into depth and get into the nitty-gritty on that, because we know our students are coming to us having been exposed and taken Spanish for a number of years, so we want to make sure that we're meeting them where they are and challenging them hopes. So that's a really good question.
Well, and just I'd like the community to understand then why a student would start in IM1 and not Spanish 1. I think, we're going to have to make sure that we're very consistent on that answer, because that's what jumps out to me in terms of looking at the course requirements and sort of our previous discussions.
That's a great question. We will be sure that we have answers for everybody.
Yeah, I know. I just want to make sure I just wanted to frame it. Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate it. Anybody else? All right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Batten to talk a little bit more about our agreement with American River College that we're very excited about.
Thank you, Mrs. Sargent. That was wonderful. So in October, when we talked about some of our innovations, right, we talked about dual enrollment, we talked about flex blocks, we talked about maybe more of the nuts and bolts of dual enrollment, and today I'm going to continue that conversation and talk a little bit more about why we are pursuing dual enrollment, and under the umbrella of why dual enrollment with American River College and what dual enrollment will mean at this stage with our school. But again, keeping it high level and looking forward to continuing this conversation into quarter 5. And so next slide, please, Mr. Ike. Thank you. So why dual enrollment? We know that we have used the word college proven, and we defined what college proven means for the board and for our community, that our students will graduate having taken one college class. And I think as we have explored our relationship with American River College, this piece is so much more than that. It's more than just having our students take a college course and to check a box, right? We know that our students, based on the language in our graduate profile, that we're graduating these inspiring adults who are prepared to lead as global citizens. And in order to do that, they can't just take a college course. They need to have the cognitive competencies onboarded through their class, through their entire high school program, to be successful learners post-high school, post-college, whatever their path is. We know that the A through G the graduation requirements Mrs. Sargent just shared with you, will allow the door to be open for all of our graduates to attend the college or university of their choice. And we are not deciding for them that they get to walk through that door or not. We are building the net to help support them, to make sure that they are prepared to do that should they choose that's their path. But no matter what path they choose, we want them to have those capabilities, those cognitive capabilities, to be successful. Should they enter, leave high school and start their own company, right? We want them to be able to do that and have the tools to do that. That would actually be pretty exciting. Let's build some, every once in a while these ideas come out. So as we look at this, where our college course offerings, I guess I want to express that for us, as we build this program, it's not just about saying, okay, ARC, give us some college courses that we can offer on our campus. It's more than that, and it's aligning with our graduate profile, as well as those competencies that we see as developing global citizenry, inclusion, diversity, cultural competencies. So those pieces are all embedded into the course offerings that we've begun to explore with ARC. Sort of outside of the benefit for our students, and the partnership obviously benefits our students, but we have over the past few months begun to really deepen our relationship with American River College. It is one of my favorite partnerships that we've developed through this process. The American River College has invited us, even though we're in the infancy of our partnership, to start taking part in a group of schools that meet once a month to talk about the process, which for us has shown that they are committed to hearing the feedback of the schools that they're working with and making adjustments. So last month we met with them and met their outreach counselor coordinator, who is somebody who will come to our high school campus. She and her team are currently pushing into virtual classrooms to talk to students. They're experiencing some of the things our teachers are experiencing. We heard them say, these high school students don't turn their cameras on. It was really hard to talk to a room without cameras on. And so there is a lot of conversation about that. But just that support, right? That again, it's not just offering a college class on our campus, that they are, their staff is part of our community. They're assisting us with the enrollment process and continue to support our students through those classes. As I mentioned, we have a group that we're getting to meet with once a month, and we've started this quarter with those meetings. Their NP3 is part of those meetings. Alexander Twilight, which is one of the Aspire high schools in Sacramento, is part of those meetings. There are some districts. San Juan Unified School District is in those meetings as well. So it is this consortium of charters and district schools that are offering feedback. We heard that one of the courses that I'm going to share with you this evening is something they were like, oh, this would be so amazing if it was applicable to ninth graders. It would just be that great entry course. It's not right now, but we're working on it. And when you hear a college say that in response to high school educators' feedback, it's pretty exciting. So we are excited for this partnership again, and just see the benefits of it and the benefits of working with this team and how it will enrich the program at Westlake Charter High School. So as we look at the ARC agreement, and we can go to the next slide, Mr. Ike, sorry, thank you. We're looking to partner with a few different departments at American River College. So when we talked about dual enrollment a few months ago, we talked about career technical education. That HCD is human career development. It's actually there's a course in there that HCD 310, I believe, that is the course that they are reworking to potentially be a ninth grade course. It's college success, so it's getting in and learning how to be a college student. And so we were like, let's get that syllabus so we can start embedding that into all of our core content. American River College has a social justice studies associate's degree, and so working with them on some of those pathways because we really see the alignment with that coursework and our global citizenry competencies, and then several other departments at American River College that we'll work closely with, as well as advanced area content courses, so those advanced mathematics courses and other courses as needed, again, to enhance that personalization that we spoke of. So I know this is not into the actual coursework. We will get there, as Mrs. Sargent said, with grad requirements as well as we continue on. But we just want to give a high-level overview of this partnership and what it will look like as you dive into that material in your board packet next month. Any questions about dual enrollment?
It was the highlight of my high school experience. I got to take a number of classes my senior year, and random stuff. Like I took geology and sociology and anthropology, and it was just awesome to have that opportunity. So I really appreciate that that's part of our program.
Wonderful, thanks, Hope. All right, well, that's all we have today. Thank you, team, for letting us come back. We look forward to seeing you in January and the start of quarter 5. Can't wait for the next quarter of work.
Love it.
John, before Mrs. Batt and Mrs. Sargent leave, did we get any comments on their presentation?
Yeah, let me take a peek. And what I was going to say, just to reiterate, I think that was said before, was that if anyone on the board has any thoughts, questions, concerns, wonderings, or noticings about any of the high school presentation pieces or any high school wonderings at all, these next 6 months are going to go fast, and we're going to be coming to you with the things in the board packet like grad requirements that we're going to want approvals on. So please pepper us with emails, reach out to me, or you can reach out directly to Leslie or Emily on any topic at all. We'd love to make sure our board is coming along with us on every decision being made. So with that, I hope there were no public comments.
Perfect. So you're welcome to stay, but thank you so much for coming and presenting to us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, team.
With that, let's kick off school reopening update.
Oh, very good. I only have a few slides, and then I'd like to, hear if the board would like to discuss the topic or not. I think when we originally put it on this reoccurring discussion item, we didn't know where we would be today. And I'll go over some data quickly and see if we can get to the discussion here. Maybe only one unique piece of data that I'll share that's localized to our condition here at Westlake. All the other data is more or less, state or regional data that I'll share. But just to make sure everybody's up to speed on where we're at, we have been following the data. And this data that you see on the screen here is the data that was presented by our Governor Newsom, when he addressed the public recently, just talking about ICU admission rates kind of starting to really rise, hospitalizations due to COVID-19 rising, and of course the 30-day positivity rate. And you can see each one of those trend lines trending up as time passes, and that is certainly concerning, which is why we've arrived to where we are. This is not the data that's produced by the state. This is the data that's produced by us. As we've told you before, we go to the epidemiology website that is a part of the Sacramento County Public Health website every single day, and we track the data every day locally here in Sacramento, because that data sometimes is reported differently at the state level because they use algorithms to change or clean the data based on realities that are important to the state. But we track this, and this is the weekly trend starting from the first week of school. Remember, that red line right there is at the number 7. We want to be lower than 7 new cases per day per 100,000 people in the Sacramento County, which is 1.5 million inhabitants of our county. And you can see it bottoms out there around that October time, and then since then it's really gone up. The chart had to be squeezed down so it doesn't really show in a relationship correctly, because the very bottom smallest number is 5, but this top number this last week is 50, meaning that 50 new cases per 100,000 people in our region. That's 50 times 15 is the number per day. And so I'm sure you're all very aware that those numbers have skyrocketed. One interesting thing, if you stare at the data long enough, you'll start to find things that are interesting to tell your board. And I thought this was interesting, so I thought I would tell you. You know, it's very interesting to us as the educational team. How long did it take to go from the previous peak in purple, which is on July, I believe, 21st, where we had near 500 cases, like 400 some odd cases. How long did it take to go from that peak down to where we could reopen school? And it took 10 weeks to go from mid-July to mid-October. That was a 10-week window from the previous peak to the valley. So when we talk about reopening schools, I want us to just think about how long it takes to get from a peak to a valley. Now, you know, this is not great data because it's only one cycle. So we don't know if that is the trend or is that just a one-time occurrence to go from peak to valley. But I just want to put that number in front of you so you can start to think. Now, of course, on this chart, you can see the previous peak was 400, and I can't remember the number, 400, let's call it near 500. The current new peak up here that we're recently experiencing is nearly 1,000 cases per day. So because the peak is much higher, will it take a longer time to come down? We don't know, but I would just like to give you that data because that's what we're staring at each day. That the daily case rate, when I say 1,000, those are real numbers as opposed to the per 100,000. So I know you're squinting at that, so I'll kind of detail it for you. This is the chart that you can find on the website called A Blueprint for a Safer Economy. This is the one that discusses each county and each region. So we'll unpack it here. The current spike obviously has our county in the purple tier. We also know that we are now experiencing a new condition, which is the stay-at-home order, which we'll talk briefly about. But more or less, 30 to 50 now new cases per day per 100,000. We had over 1,800 cases just in the first 2 days of December. Each of those days was over 900. Our positivity rate, as you can see by the chart here, if you squint, is at 10.3% in Sacramento County. And on the chart on December 8th, when it was published, they published our ICU bed availability at 17.7%. They have now updated the chart and removed that metric because they've now put the ICU bed metric not on the county chart, but on a regional chart that I'll show you in a moment. Now, why is that important? Because we know that the new stay-at-home orders are going to be based on regions and their availability for ICU beds. I believe that the order was if you're below 15% as a region, then we would have to engage in some stay-at-home orders. Again, this is not a regional number. This number, 17.7, was just the county. And remember, our region includes the 12 counties that all touch Sacramento County. So as a region, that's not our number, but I will show you our number now. So this is the county chart that describes the condition of the county. This is the regional chart. So if you can see it, it has all of California in very light blue, and that dark blue shape is our greater Sacramento region. And what I'm highlighting in that little red box over there is that the ICU availability is reported at 9.9%. So we're a little less than 10% of all the ICU beds available in the greater Sacramento region. Less than 10% are actually available. And I'm sure we all understand why that's important as the...
Hey, John, I'm sorry. So our regional availability is actually 13.3. The 9.9 is statewide availability.
Goodness. You're right. I apologize, Hope. I highlighted the wrong thing and said the wrong thing. Thank you so much. Yeah,
I only say it because you look like if you click on Yolo County, it said 0 at certain points, which is why the region is so important. But I didn't want anyone at home listening in to start to panic that there was a 6% drop in one day.
Yeah, thank you. You know what's just funny is I said it out loud. I was thinking, is that the right number? I apologize. I put the red box in the wrong spot. This is the regional chart, but that is the state data, 9.9. Thank you so much. We're at 13.3 as a region, which is lower by 4 percentage points than the Sacramento County standalone, which is very important, right? That's why we're doing it regionally, is because if you're in a county has 0 beds, but there are beds available in Sacramento County, right? Patients can cross the county line and come take those beds and use them. So really important data. We have experts on this Google Meet, who are far more, I'm referring to Mrs. Gibbons, obviously, who knows more about this than I do, but I bring you the data so we can talk about it briefly. I want to talk more locally than about the school. So that's the condition of the county. Reopening next steps. You can see on your screen right here a chart of every memo that we have written. We've run it through leadership. We've run it through our DNA teams. We've run it through our teacher teams, our classified teams. We also, I've blocked out their names on the right, but we have over 20 staff members who have then taken the memo, helped to revise it, volunteered to build the slides for it, and volunteered to shoot the video for it. So basically, at this point, all of our resources are in place for training materials for our staff. And so if we were, green lighted to start moving forward, everything here, all the decisions are made on how we will reopen school. So we feel very confident that we are physically prepared as we look at our landscape. Like, we know what we would do if we got green lighted tomorrow, and all of our materials are in place to do so. The resources that are not available that I'd like to just kind of bring you up to speed on, and I'm sure there are more, but these are the ones I'm really concerned about as the leader of the organization, and that is we're really lacking certificated teaching substitutes. So we don't have a lot of substitute teachers. Remember, in March, we had a sub shortage already. As we're going through the school year, there's just not enough substitute teachers, and as we've gone through 9 months of this situation, we haven't increased the number of substitutes who are available. Substitute teachers who realize there's no jobs have gone on to other things, and so we really don't have a lot of substitutes right now, and that's a concern for us. We also don't have very many classified substitutes. Now, in a normal year, that's not as big of an issue because you just don't see widespread, absenteeism. But as we look at the situation we're in right now, to be honest, there are days of the week here at Westlake Charter School since August where it's been hard to keep the office open. And the closer we've gotten to today, these last 3 to 4 weeks have been increasingly difficult. Every single person who comes into contact with anyone else who tests positive, that person has to go in quarantine for 14 days. Well, luckily we're in a mostly virtual environment right now, so it hasn't been too challenging, but the physical keeping of the office open has become more challenging because it's physical. I take that to scale and think, well, what if we're open and you're missing 7 office employees? Well, these office employees are hands-on when the school is open and kids are coming and going. We've built out so many support structures at Westlake. Who opens the car doors? Who's standing at the gate? Who's taking the temperature? Who's shepherding the kid to the health office? When you start taking people out of that equation, all the structures that we built start to become harder to run, even in a regular time, not just during COVID. And so classified substitutes, I'm just going to put this out there. There are no such thing as administrative substitutes. Like, you can't pick up the phone and be like, can I get another principal? Mine's on quarantine. And so you start to think about the human resources, the human capital to run this place. It's the one thing I think I'm most concerned about. When you ask me what keeps me up at night, I am concerned wholeheartedly about COVID transmission, certainly. However, when I talk about reopening the school, I hear people saying, hey, it's safe to do. You can do it. Everybody wear a mask and do that. This staffing piece is real. This is a screenshot of a news report from Tehachapi Unified, where they were doing in-person school, but at some point they just stopped here and said, look, we gotta shut down for a while. It's not because of closing cohorts due to transmission rates. It is because we can't keep the staff on deck, and it's too hard to put a substitute teacher in a classroom. You're talking about massive disruption. You're talking about hybrid learning. This idea of reopening school in hybrid is like really complicated. I don't know that a substitute teacher is going to manage the in-class kids and the at-home kids and all these things as well. I'm not trying to say it can't be done because it is being done. I am just saying that with our resources that we have of human capital, it's going to be an increased challenge. So I put that out there so you understand what I'm thinking about as we go into the work that we have to do. And as rates come under control, and we get back to red, staffing becomes less of a challenge because there's less community spread. So that is my reopening report. I will certainly open it up if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, and I'd love to hear a discussion amongst you if you feel so inclined.
John, because we did have a waiver question and public comments, do you mind if I just really quickly go over what we'd have to do if we wanted to proceed with a waiver?
Absolutely. I think it'd be beneficial. Sure.
Okay, so board members can certainly, the application is available on the Sac County website. It's a county by county process through the Sacramento County Public Health Department. I just want to remind that we could only request a waiver for grades K through 6. So even if we did request it, we would not be able to include grades 7 or 8 at this time. And the reason why I think it might be a good idea for us to go ahead and talk about it tonight is there are several consultation requirements in the waiver application that staff would need to start undertaking. Even with the request being like with 3 months out, right? The school admin would need to consult with not only school employees, but also with parents and guardians, as well as other community organizations about what our waiver might mean. Additionally, what we would have to do, and luckily we have a lot of this piece in place, but we would have to, describe what our cleaning and disinfection process would be, how our cohorting would work and function, particularly around minimizing and avoiding contact with other groups, and how they would stay together for all activities. Like John mentioned regarding staffing being a concern, we'd have to detail entrance, egress, and movement within the school and how that whole process would work. Also, how we would enforce face coverings and other essential protective gear. And what our school policy will be for enforcing that for people while they're on campus. We'd need to detail what our health screenings for students and staff would look like. And under the new Cal OSHA requirements, I would expect them to require a fairly detailed testing plan for cases as they come out. What the healthy hygiene practices will be for the school, and this is in regards to hand washing stations and hand sanitizer, and how we would promote and incorporate them fully into our school day, as well as how we would identify and trace contacts, which might be easier with today's launch of this statewide app for contact tracing that's built into our iPhones and is now available for Android mobile devices. We'd have to explain in detail what our physical distancing would look like, what staff training and family education we've provided, and then, like I mentioned, testing. It's just changed a bit since they released this application with the new Cal OSHA guidance that took effect a week ago Monday. And then what our triggers would be for switching to and out of distance learning. And I know it's a lot, and I summarized it quickly, but I did that, a little purposely, because it's going to take quite a bit of staff time to complete this application, which is why I do feel like it's something we should discuss if everyone's comfortable as part of our reopening update discussion. But certainly if the board's uninterested or has other plans, I am happy to hear those comments as well. Michelle.
Sorry, the mute is it's invasive sometimes. I wanted to talk a little bit about, or to kind of piggyback, Hope, on what you said in terms of the waiver process, but I also want to remind what the waiver process was actually intended for, and it was actually intended for areas where the schools are kind of isolated from these high case rates. And so you'll see that there's also on the state website that there's this kind of statement that says, that they're strongly encouraging or saying, basically that waivers should be sought if your case rate is less than 2 times the daily. And so the daily case rate to be in a tier is like 7 cases per day. But when you go and look at Sacramento County, we are at like 30 plus cases per day. And so I just also wanted to frame
like what the reasoning behind a waiver was, and it's that there are some areas throughout the state initially as this was being conceived that didn't experience those high case rates, and so it didn't make sense to leave students out of school, that they could continue in an area where the transmission risk was much lower. And I just say that because that's really not where we're at in our state right now. And I want to also remind people that as we think about reopening the school and as we think about whether or not we should seek a waiver, we also have to think about learning loss on both sides and what the impact on children would be on both sides. So right now in distance learning, every student, should have access to, distance learning. You're able to engage with your teacher and other students, and we're learning how to improve upon that process day by day, which I think is really great, right? We're seeing teachers engage students in lunchtime learning sessions. My kids are having recess with their peers. There's different ways that they're trying to engage as well as teach, right? And the instructional time has been really helpful. They have that face-to-face interaction with their teacher, and all the teachers are utilizing different strategies. That is different in a scenario in which we go back to school under a waiver potentially. And also the risk is that, John, to the point that you mentioned earlier with substitute teachers not really being that same pool that we used to have, as teachers become exposed and have to quarantine or, even get sick or exposed and take this back to a family member who then they have to care for. So as the impacts on teachers happen, this also could mean that your children, both on the distance learning side, but also those that were seeking to come back to school through a waiver process, could have their learning disrupted or their routine disrupted. We can get into a scenario where that teacher is no longer able to do that same teaching that they're doing day to day. They may have to remove themselves to take care of themselves or a loved one and not have that same interaction. And so I just want to be really, John, the point that you made about the office having a hard time staying open, I would just kind of expand that out to what that would look like in terms of all of the teachers, and then think about what that means in terms of students. And I'm very mindful about not just the learning loss, and I think we can do a lot to build in additional supports. We should definitely always be improving upon our teaching and our distance learning and finding ways to listen to families and then to fill the needs that they have and that they're expressing. I think we talked a lot earlier in the governance meeting about social emotional learning and addressing those, whatever supports that they have. We also just have to be very mindful that we want to, at least from my perspective, we would want to avoid this going back into school, moving them back out, and having to reacclimate them. And in a place where transmission rates are really high, that risk of doing that is heightened as well. And so I just wanted to put some framing there. I think, I want to sympathize for families. I know all students have different needs, and some students may need to be in this social setting, and school is such a great place for them. And I just would ask that Westlake think about how do we hone in on those students and find ways to support them during this time, but also caution against maybe what seems like a very realistic potential using the waiver, but also thinking about the other implications too. Will it disrupt distance learning as we see it today? Will it disrupt that continuity of learning that kids are out in these times are able to access?
Michelle, there's one fact that I've heard a couple times now from members of our community, and I only ask you this because of your expertise in public health, so please don't feel like you have to answer. But initially, around the waivers, there was a lot of talk that if your case positivity per 100,000, as long as it was under 200, that really was okay to apply for a waiver. And I just wonder, I'm sure we have listeners out there who might have heard that. Do you know why we sort of shifted away? You mentioned the doubling of the case rate. If you have any knowledge about sort of what the current practice is around that.
Yeah, and bear with me because this changes so much, but the last time we talked about it, the 200 actually represented it was part of that 14-day average, right? It wasn't the daily. And so the way that the calculations and the number goes are slightly different. And I will, for full disclosure, I think you could potentially find some schools in areas where they maybe exceed that threshold because it's a strong recommendation, not a requirement. But what we are seeing across the state is that there are schools, because the transmission rates are increasing, that they're having to close down again because they have been experiencing the same thing we're seeing with our admin team or in our office. The other thing that I would mention too, John, you talked about the peak in July and then where we're seeing ourselves at today. We are just 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving, right? So that's when we expected to see that peak. We are also a couple of weeks away from Christmas, where the cycle is that 2 weeks later we will then see another spike, and then a week after that we have New Year's, and there is a potential to see another spike after that. And so when we think about like what are we seeing, we could potentially be mid-January before we start to see some reprieve on the heights of those rates.
It's not funny you mentioned that, Michelle, but what struck me about the regional order for us in Sacramento was its timing, right? Because I believe it's going to expire at midnight on New Year's Eve. And I find great hilarity in that, if only because it might have made sense to maybe go with 4 weeks this time of year. But, it's hard. I'm sure the board has seen the news about I believe the student in Lodi who shot himself and took his life during a 6th grade class, and then the student in Dixon that took his life over the weekend there. So I certainly, regardless of what we decide to do on the waiver, I hear the call for greater social, emotional engagement if possible. I feel like it's equally important for our staff, though. And that's part of, for me, my consideration in thinking of going for the waiver process. And you're mentioning about the back and forth and learning it this way and then doing it that way. And I worry that for our teachers who have really pivoted with such amazing capability this year, that asking for another pivot again so soon into the new year, I don't want to break anybody. One of our board's goals is recruit and retain teachers. And I worry about retention, that with this constant pivoting and that inability to sort of settle and know what's next is something this board should also consider when looking at the waivers. Because, I'm blessed to be friends with many educators, and I worry for them often because of the stress they're facing trying to do everything, right? To be super teachers, super human, super parents, super anything. And it's just so hard. So I take that into account for this discussion too. Sorry to go on for so long. Other board comments? Ashley.
I would caution against waiver as well, with everything that Michelle said and with the touches that I have on it. I have touches on schools that do have the waivers, and those schools are forced to make really, really tough decisions that in our coming back to school manual and stuff, we really, I don't think, have wanted to make and have put in there, such as your classroom closes down because you were exposed. So that constant boomerang, I know very particularly a teacher, her class was closed down because her husband's restaurant was exposed, and so therefore she was exposed because of the duration of time. So they went back. So just that class goes back to distance learning for 2 weeks. Their assistant is now, and so they're back again. And so, they've been open for 8 weeks, but they've been back and forth. And I know that we really didn't want to make a call for a single class, but I think that the waiver in these times will force, and I've seen that in another school that has a waiver. They just are making choices that we have not wanted to make, that we felt like wasn't best for families. And I think that it would be a lot of hard choices to have to make if we chose that route.
Thanks, Ashley. Other board comments? I don't know, Jed, do you have anything you want to share from our governance discussion?
Yeah, I'm basically in the same point on this that I have been, since this got started, which is that I think Westlake proved itself able to be very agile in March when it was necessary for us to do something quickly, and we got our acts together. And I think there's going to be all sorts of excuses or opportunities, I suppose, to really agonize over whether or not we want to be ahead of the curve or just behind the curve. I worry that discussion, potentially the cultural damage we could do, the damage in the relationships with our teachers, who all we want to do is profess our undying appreciation for, right? Set all that stuff aside, right? And focus on making our remote learning as great as we can possibly make it. And I would be pressing us to be bringing more data to see what is any learning loss that we are demonstrating or we're able to detect, through our work, and then making incremental improvements to it on a monthly basis or something like that, and just leaving this distraction of a potentially highly politicized, highly controversial issue of a waiver. Just leave it aside. If it gets to the moment where we can responsibly open, we'll get our world together in 5 or 6 days and figure out how to make that change in the same way that we did last year. But my advice would be just to please keep the focus on making remote learning as much as possible. Don't get distracted on something that's very unlikely to happen or is going to be subject to so many different permutations over the next couple months. And hopefully that's a recipe that allows us to continue to be doing things that clearly many of our family members and I think our staff members are really comfortable with and feel proud about.
On that note, Jed, I'd also like to take the board's temperature on another idea I had. Now, we have a public comment that asked us to bring this back to the January agenda. Our meeting for January would be January the 14th. Knowing the data with where it's at and knowing how much time this takes, would the board be willing? I might be suggesting that we have this discussion again in February instead of January, if only because I don't anticipate a whole heck of a lot changing between now and January 14th. And so I would just love to know and to be able to have John respond to our commenter with, it's 9 o'clock because my lights went off. I'll fix that after. Sorry. Be able to respond to our commenter for us. I'd like to be able to say when we might discuss it again. And for me personally, I feel like January might be too soon for that discussion. But having it in February or even March with the idea that John has heard us and if we can safely reopen we can always have a special meeting, right? Just to give some time to focus in on that distance learning and getting through the holidays and kicking off 2021. But I would love to hear people's thoughts on that too, including yours, John. Sorry, I kind of blindsided you with that.
Oh, this is Michelle. I would just say that I agree with the timing of February for having that discussion, and might maybe suggest that as an iterative process for January that we talk a little bit more or learn a little bit more about the supports that we're offering our students and making sure that the uptake of those supports are appropriate. And if not, how can we do additional outreach? We want to be responsive to some of the other needs that are happening in the meantime, but I think February for timing wise makes sense.
No, and I think that's a perfect segue, Michelle, right, where we would have a presentation on distance learning and the learning that's taking place in January, and then look at reopening and the current status of things in February. I think that's a perfect suggestion. I really appreciate it. Are there other board comments on this topic? Nope. Okay, I am not seeing anything. So that will be our plan then. So at this, we don't have this on for a vote tonight. What I'm hearing, without any more public comment, is that the board at this point in time is not directing staff to entertain the preparation of a waiver. That in January, we'll have an agenda item that discusses the learning that's been going on over the first half of the year in distance learning, and what John, you always do such a good job of highlighting what you notice and what you wonder about the data. I think there's a call here too, if we can, in January, to have a presentation on the social emotional supports that we have available for students and staff as well. And if I understand that this is maybe all too much for January given the holiday, so for that one, if that one needed to be fed, I think we need to be flexible with how much we ask for you to turn around by the 14th. But then in February, bring back school reopening so we can look at sort of where we're at and where we're headed. Does that work for you? Is that an okay sort of summary of what you heard tonight? Amy's nodding. So John,
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for Amy, making sure she captured it all. Luckily, we have it on YouTube. But yeah, I think that's great. I think we'll come back in January with the data that's been requested both by Ms. Gibbons and Mr. Wallace, social, emotional, academic data, and preparations for further interventions, so we can offer more supports. And then ramping up, keeping our eye on the data and what's going on and what we can do next. Hope, we did have a comment come in just now. I'm not sure if now is the time you want to entertain it or not, but I just want to let you know what one came in.
Sure. We haven't quite concluded. Is it on? And it's on this item?
It does seem to be on this item.
So yes, let's go ahead and just in case it shifts our plan.
Yeah, cool. This is from Kelly Herrera. It says, has there been consideration of having teachers that are willing to be live in the classroom, teach in the classroom, and then teachers that want to stay distance learning, teach distance learning? And so I think, I don't know if everybody's been with you the whole 2-hour meeting or not, but you can probably give your statement about what we do with questions and comments.
Well, this is a little different, John, in the fact that it is on the agenda tonight. So technically, we could address the question.
Oh, good.
However, I'm going to ask that you engage on that topic and sort of explain how we've gotten to where we are at with that sort of idea, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, don't mind at all. I'll set up a time to respond and talk that one through for sure.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. With that, future agenda items. Next month, we will have a item on the agenda to extend John's COVID-related authorities in terms of the amending of policies. That expires on December 31st, and so we'll is that okay, John?
We could discuss, or whether let it lapse. I mean, one way or the other.
Either way, it will be on the agenda, but we do need to have a discussion about that, and then I'm hoping to have board goals. I mean, I know it's halfway through the year, but I think it's also a great way to check in and see what committees are working on. So hopefully we'll have that for an agenda item. And John, can you think of anything else we might have in January?
I know that I'll bring back some academic data so we can maybe do some analysis around learning loss and mitigation.
Right. And the other topics that we talked about, right, so it will include that as well. So that will bring us to reflection. I'll go first. It would be nice if, I know I shut my camera off briefly to eat, but if we could all strive to keep our cameras on through the whole meeting, that would be really helpful, just because I try to read your faces sometimes to know how long to sit and wait, and it's challenging when videos aren't off. So it was a really great meeting. I don't mean to shortcut that at all. It's just something that I noticed and wanted to reflect on. With that, I'll go to Ashley and then Vasa.
I think I'm having the same thing with Michelle. The light is like slowly turning on. I just want to reflect on the budget. That was a highlight for me. That and seeing the website posted. Thanks, John, for pulling it up. But we kind of, braced ourselves for the worst and prepared for what could be a really grim budget, and it was a really nice preview that was not actually what we got this time around. And so kudos to Steve and his team for always looking way ahead, and I know that we are where we are today with our budget because of that foresight, and it was just a big highlight.
Thanks, Ashley. Vasa, and then Jed.
I mean, I gotta give the high school crew a shout out. I mean, it's so we're in the middle of this pandemic. We got all this other stuff going on, and we're developing this amazing high school program. And Emily just always, and Leslie Sargent, I mean, they just always inspire me. They're so dedicated. You can tell Emily is so excited. Like, she starts talking about it, she's just about to explode with excitement. So it's pretty cool.
She vibrates. I agree, in the best possible way. Jed, and then Shannon.
I just generally thought it was a good meeting, and I thought we touched upon the right things and set up things well for conversations in January and February. So I feel good about that stuff.
Thanks, Jed. Shannon, and then Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what everyone has said. I also thought the parent survey data, as always, was interesting, and specifically with the lens of like a completely upside down year with them having to be more inside the classroom than ever before. And so I think, yeah, interesting to see how some things have stayed totally the same, or not totally, but largely the same, and some things have really had a new focus with at-home distance learning and support in general, and that social emotional support. So I thought that was interesting, and then obviously excited about the high school presentation and all the progress that's still being able to be made in these pandemic and worsening conditions.
It just real fast, it's funny, like we built a campus through the rainiest season on record, right? And then now we're opening a high school in a pandemic. And if there was ever any institution that shows it will make it through and do what it needs to do through, I don't want to throw anything else at us, but I'm just saying it is an impressive reminder to think about what we have overcome. So Sean, and then Josh.
All right, Control D was not working. So first, I'll apologize for being off camera a lot more than I normally am. It's been a heck of a week, and I'm glad I made it to the meeting. So, but I liked the high school discussion. It's always nice to see people who are excited about their jobs tell you about their jobs. So that's really cool.
Josh, and then Michelle.
Yeah, I wanted to celebrate Steve and the finance committee and everybody involved with the budgeting process as we go through, these turbulent times, and budgets, at a state level and everything are changing almost daily. To have confidence in the numbers that are being presented every time they're being presented makes it so much easier to make those hard decisions as to what direction we want to go. So I want to thank Steve, the finance committee, and his team, and celebrate them for just giving us that strength as we go forward.
Thanks, Josh. Michelle, and then Nancy.
I'm really thankful for the family feedback, the parent feedback that was provided tonight. We had a few comments, and I think it's great to hear what families are thinking, and always appreciate suggestions that are being thrown out there for the board to consider.
Thanks, Michelle. Nancy, and then I'll toss it into the admin team to whoever wants to participate.
So I appreciate being last because everybody echoed all the things that I wanted to reflect on. I absolutely loved hearing about the high school presentation, of course. I think being as a parent, now that they're already in high school, but just having that, additional lens is always just interesting and amazing that, like we're saying at the very beginning of this meeting, like things are still happening, and things are still moving on. And I so appreciate the work of the team on so many various levels. So Thank you for that. The only other thing I wanted to reflect on was the school reopening update. I think having all of these different perspectives, having Michelle's expertise really highlights like why people are on this board. And so thank you for those additional tidbits of information, and because it is very front of mind, and I get asked all the time, like, you know, do you think that we're going to open? And there's so many considerations. So appreciate the additional perspective that each member of this board brings to the table.
Thanks, Nancy. John and I were actually just celebrating that earlier today. So it's a great reflection. John, Amy, or Steve, any of you, just go for it.
Hey, Dub, you want to play? You want to do a reflection?
Sure. I will say that it's always exciting to see where we're going as a school. And so, of course, right now we are going full steam ahead as we do with an amazing high school program. And it's just really fun to see where that's going and just to know where we've come from and where we're going. It's just super exciting. Westlake University should be next on our to-do list.
Love it. Mr. Corbin, do you want to reflect on the meeting?
Yes, I will. I think Amber's dropped off already, but man, I'll just give a big shout out to Amber and her team and all the volunteers, including every volunteer on this screen tonight. I think specifically about WAVE and putting together OT, providing services and help to Joey's Food Locker, getting together a Dos Coyotes event next week. I mean, all those things that help our school community be a school community. So a big shout out to Amber and her team.
Mrs. Batten, I see you on the screen. Would you like to reflect on the meeting? Is that why you're here? You're coming back for close?
I've just been I've been hanging out with my camera off, so I was like, do I camera on or camera off?
You may reflect on the meeting, the best part of it, or something that we could do better.
Okay. I think I have two pieces. I always love hearing the parent survey data. I think it's just such a wonderful representation of the first part of our mission statement, and the fact that we do it 3 times a year consistently allows us to then look back and see where we've gone and where we're going. So it's great, always fun to see that, and then see the coded feedback as well. I think it just gives us a really nice perspective on where we're doing well and where we can focus. And the board conversation around that was really nice to hear. I also just wanted to reflect on the foresight of this board, our admin team, and in creating a high school team, right? And obviously, as a member of that team, I'm reaping the benefits of it. But as we talk about the fact that the work is able to move forward, it is only because, 13, 14 months ago, we made strategic decisions to kind of separate some people to do the work. And had we not done that, I don't know where we'd be right now. And so just, I think as we capture things that we've learned through this time of disruption to our educational system, it's something to think about, and the impact of separating off. And it's just been such a gift, and I can't thank people enough. I do also feel like I'm going to jump out of my seat every time I get to talk about it. So thank you for the opportunity.
It makes it a joy to watch you speak on it. My reflection on tonight's board meeting, but maybe on the last 12 board meetings, is the really diverse competencies of the volunteers who make up our board. Tonight I heard each person really bring not only their own perspective and their own professional perspective from your own professional expertise, but I heard a lot of committee perspective. I don't think Sean Berman would boast to be a financial wizard, but then she comes in with such strong understanding of our financial capacities because she is, the centerpiece of our financial team. And I think that each of us have gone to these committees and become developed by those committees. So each one of you brings such amazing competencies to this board from your own life and from your committee work. And then the other piece that I would say is that it's such a pleasure for me to hear, and I heard broadly tonight, each one of you really living up to this kind of culture of celebration around our staff members. So many of you tonight celebrated teachers, our classified staff, the office, the admin team. You were able to directly tie your celebration about the budget to Steve, to the finance team, to the teams, and I love that about this board. So the reflection for me is, we've become a really functional board from many diverse perspectives. So thank you for all that.
Thanks, John. And then for Ghost Clothes Night, I have to recommend real fast, since it's Taco Tuesday, the potato tacos. Like, I'm not sure that people pause and look at them, but they are the best. They are the best taco that potato taco. Like, I am already ready for next Tuesday. With that, we will adjourn into closed session. I don't anticipate any report out, so we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Anybody watching from home, we won't come back to the link. So you've stuck with us for almost 3 hours, and so we love you for it. We are going into conference with our real property negotiators. All the information regarding that closed session can be found on that agenda. Now, with that in mind, do people need, seriously, only 5 minutes because it's like 9:18 already, or do we want to push through? 5 minutes. Okay, that's good because we don't actually have a link, John. So do you want people just to come back to the link, this link, right?
Everybody, either you stay here, turn your mic and camera off, and turn it back on 5 minutes. I will turn off the YouTube stream right now. So thanks everybody at home, and board, we'll see you back.